Hello friends. This is Phoenix What If. How are you all? So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto become the warden of Bleach World? But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also if possible share this video with your friends. Now without wasting any more time, let's begin the story. The skies had a dull color. There was nothing but gray that littered the atmosphere on the borders of Omegakure no Sato. Currently, exactly 11 people, all foreigners in the lands of AIM, were currently on the ground, exhausted, tired and defeated, with no strength left to stand up but stare at the sky as rains continued to pour over the faces of these semi-conscious people. One of these particular people happened to go by the name of Uzumaki Naruto, son of Namikaze Minato the Yondaime and the Jinchuriki of the most powerful Biju in existence, Kyuubi no Kitsune. Deciding to defy the pain that his own body had been sending him, he stood up, facing a person, no taller than him, who calls himself Kami among the people of AIM, holding the eyes of the fabled Rinnegan, Samasura Eye or Eye of the Six Realms. The blonde stared at the man before him, wiping the red liquid that dripped from his forehead, a result of head-banging one of the six personalities in a futile effort to stop him from summoning further. The baggy eyes that once held such bright sapphire orbs stared at the concentric eyes of the one before him who was completely unscathed. Not even Fuden, Rasen Shuriken, Wind Release, Spiraling Shuriken, was enough to knock this guy down. Just what the hell is he? Said the blonde, who then formed the seal of his favorite technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Replication Skill, said the blonde, and 4 clones appeared. 3-2 stood by the original while the 2 charged at the leader. "Haven't I told you that it's useless?" said the leader, and in a flash, the clones were dispatched in a cloud of smoke, effectively canceling Rasen Shuriken. "Damn it," said Naruto. His fists were shaking from frustration. He just couldn't pull through against the man of the 6 paths. "As far as this lil charade has gone, I grew bored of this long ago," said the leader, and in a simple command, one of the personalities of the one who called himself Kami held one of Naruto's dearest friends by the neck and poised a kunai at her throat. "Uzumaki Naruto, son of the Yondaime Hokage and Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune, surrender yourself before me and this girl shall live, if not, her blood shall stain the lands of AIM," said the man as he then gazed at the woman who had lavender-colored eyes. Naruto grew fearful of the situation. The man who commanded Akatsuki was holding Hyuga Hinata hostage. The conflict of ideals in his mind rushed as his desire to protect those he loved conflicted with the desire to protect everyone. He didn't know what to do. He stared at the ground as if it was his most interesting subject at that time. He was shivering, from both fear and despair which he was desperately trying to hold back. Suddenly, out of the blue, one of the people on the ground charged in a blinding speed. The sound of 1,000 birds chirping accompanied the dashing figure heading towards the man that held the Hyuga Heiress. "Chidori. Chirping of 1,000 birds," said the figure, otherwise known as Uchiha Sasuke, as he outstretched his arm with the lightning-infused chakra towards the one that held Hinata, only to be blocked by the visibly plump personality of Pain. The fat person absorbed the chakra of the attack and nullified its effect. It was then that Sasuke was sent flying towards the side by a kick from one of Pain's many personalities that sent the Uchiha skidding on the dirt. "Damn it. Where is he?" said the Uchiha, standing up from the attack, who then coughed up blood and was held down. "If you mean by Madara Uchiha, then he is somewhere else. I do not intend to know what goes on in his mind, but I wish to complete this goal to show this world how meaningless fighting truly is," said Pain as he then looked back at the blonde who was still hesitating. "You're hiding him. He's here, the one who was Itachi's accomplice in the night of the massacre. He was supposed to be the real leader of Akatsuki. Now where is he?" asked the Uchiha, unsheathing his sword, and dashed yet again towards Pain, who in turn was blocked by one of his personalities while the rest grappled his arms and legs and tossed him away from the man. "Shit," thought Naruto, who was then now clutching his head. His own frustration, fear and hesitation were getting to him. He couldn't lift a finger at all to even aid his best friend. "Naruto-kun," was all Hinata could say, and suddenly, Naruto tilted his head upwards, hearing the voice of the Hyuga Heiress that Naruto instantly knew. "No matter what happens to me, please, know that you are still you and that you can't give up." That did it. Naruto couldn't take it anymore. He knew what he had to do. Forget about being Hokage. Forget about Sasuke. If it meant protecting everyone of his precious people and everyone on Earth, then so be it. He had no choice, he was going to turn the key. 1. Fine. Damn it. You want the bastard fox so much, then you can have him. Just don't kill them, said Naruto, angrily shouting and punching the ground. If it was going to be this way, at least he was going to take all of them down with him. What the hell are you saying, Dobi? You want to plunge this world into chaos? Said Sasuke, who then gripped the blonde by the collar and stared at his eyes. Sasuke saw something in the blonde's eyes that seemed to make him even madder. It was the eyes of someone whose determination and will overcame his fear and is prepared for death. You're actually going to do it. You want to leave everyone just to get what you want. You shut the up, Uchiha. I know I'm not gonna make it now, and don't tell me crap like deserting everyone I care about behind. I don't need it coming from you, said the blonde, then earned a punch on his left cheek. I did it because I wanted to kill Itachi. Don't force yourself into something you don't want, yelled the Uchiha, who then cracked his knuckles. That, if it means one of my precious people getting killed, then I have no reason to be Hokage. Now get your act together and kill Madara. I don't care what happens to me anymore, but if I see someone I care for die in front of me, I don't think I could take it anymore. I've lost my family, the Sandaime, and even Ero Sennin. I don't want to lose either you, Sakura, or Hinata as well, said Naruto finally, after years of concealing his pain, suffering and self-conflict. For the first time after more than 10 years, Uzumaki Naruto wept. Hinata couldn't help herself as she cried as well. All the pain that Naruto received, never experiencing the love of a family and having his own life spiral into the depths of darkness at such an early age. Naruto, was the thought of one particular masked Junin hearing the conversation between the Uchiha and the blonde. He slowly got up, seeing the Uzumaki close the distance between himself and the leader of Akatsuki. He wanted to stop it, but knew that Naruto had already made up his mind. He'll die for Hinata's sake. Release her now, and don't do anything stupid, because if you do, I'll cut my own throat, said Naruto, and Pain did just as he was told. Sakura stirred, slowly getting up, and surprised that she wasn't dead. He saw Naruto, talking to the leader with Sasuke close behind, whose fist was shaking with anger. Just what was going on? Then she saw clearly. Naruto followed the leader with Sasuke turning his back and not looking back, daring not to show the pain that was stabbing his heart for losing another important person in his life. Hinata kneeled on the ground, crying her heart out, perhaps the one who was most emotional at the moment. She didn't know why, but she felt angry and asked the one that was what at least she thought was the most emotionally stable at the moment. Sasuke-kun, what's going on? Where's Naruto going? Asked the worried cherry blossom-haired girl. Sasuke could only say, I'll kill him. I'll kill Madara, then I'll kill Pain. My path for vengeance isn't over yet, said Sasuke as he dashed away, towards the village of Omegakure no Sato itself. Just what is going on? Asked Sakura as Kakashi began to sit upright, and then replied to Sakura. It's better if you hear the story from the beginning, said Kakashi, and Sakura paid full attention. Akatsuki hideout. Now, we can finally commence the sealing. Right now, the Kyuubi no Kitsune is the only thing missing in our little collection, said Tobi, or Madara to be precise, as Naruto then stood in the middle of the statue of the giant hand. So I guess this statue here is the place where the souls of the Biju are to be absorbed along with their hosts, said Naruto. Good thing they happened to have their numbers reduced. Itachi was killed by Sasuke. Deidara committed suicide. Hidan got trapped underground by Shikamaru. Kakuzu was Naruto's lab rat for his Rasen Shuriken, and Sasori was surprisingly killed by Sakura with the aid of Chiyo. This meant that they had to do the sealing physically, making themselves physically present to the sealing chamber. All right, since I'm going to die anyway, I'll die in a blaze of glory, said the blonde, who then clapped his hands together and a poof of smoke appeared from nowhere, revealing a toad that had a scroll for a body. What the, Naruto? What the hell are you doing? If you so much as turn the key by a little, you'll know what will happen, said the toad, and Naruto replied. I don't care anymore, said the blonde, quickly brandishing the scroll. Stop him, said Madara, only they were all too late, as Naruto quickly turned the key of his seal by spraying his blood on the spiral drawing of the seal that had almost half of it covered by the blood of his former sensei, Jiraiya. Say hello to Kyuubi for me in hell, you bastards, said Naruto, and the scroll immediately glowed and entered Naruto's navel. It stopped by about a quarter of the way and then began to turn in a clockwise fashion. Slowly, the sounds of 5 locks being opened echoed through the ceiling chamber, and Naruto had let his rage take over rationality. In just 1 second, it only took 1 second, before a huge chakra surge and killing intent was released that was felt in all countries. The members of Akatsuki was held down by the huge surge of killing intent and chakra. They couldn't move a flinch or even try to escape with a jutsu. "Are you sure to go through this, Gaki?" asked the Kyuubi, having one more final mental conversation before accepting the inevitable. The 9-tailed fox had already accepted his fate. Even if the blonde were to live in old age, the Kyuubi no Kitsune was to die anyway, being that his future would mean the absorption his own chakra and life force to Naruto. So in a way, Kyuubi would rather die fighting and in a rampage than die slowly and shamefully from a seal. "I've already made up my mind, and once I give my word, I never break it. I've said it a couple of times and I'll say it again one last time, it's because it's my nindo," said Naruto as the chakra surge stopped for a moment and then exploded in a flash. Hokage Tower. Tsunade had sensed it, the powerful chakra surge that came from the very site where Kakashi stated in a report when they saved the cage, Yama no Kuni. It wasn't the only thing that she felt that made her remember. It was also the very same feeling of when the Kyuubi no Kitsune was about to invade Konoha right before she evacuated along with some citizens, since she didn't want anything to do with Konoha at the time. It meant one thing. "Shizune. I want all active shinobi to head over Yama no Kuni. Something as big is going on. Send as many as you can," said Tsunade, and Shizune immediately obeyed, dashing out the door. Tsunade shivered. Deep inside her she wanted to hope that in some way, her Aototo, little brother, was safe. "I need sake right now," thought Tsunade, last of the Sannin, as she headed out the door, and went to a local bar before joining her subordinates in heading towards Yama no Kuni. "A megacure. Did you feel that?" asked Sakura as the killing intent radiated everywhere she turned. It was so malicious that she fell to the ground and was about to puke. "This isn't good. Sakura, Hinata, go and treat our comrades. Sasuke's group as well. We'll be going to Yama no Kuni as soon as possible," said Kakashi as he then stood up and took a soldier pill. The two nodded and proceeded towards their comrades and towards Habi, Snake. "Naruto, please don't die," thought Sakura as the killing intent suddenly vanished. Somewhere in the elemental countries, Hitsugaya Tushiru has just finished his rounds around this sector. It wasn't until an abnormal amount of Ryotsu suddenly burst out from nowhere and immediately vanished. It was supposed to be a routine mission, patrol and secure this particular area with his partner for the day, Madarame Akaku. With the abnormal surge of Ryotsu, Hitsugaya immediately flew to the scene of the explosion and quickly thanked the gods for noting that he was near the scene before any hollows could appear, damage control and all that. Akaku whistled as he saw the giant crater from where the explosion occurred. "Damn, that's a pretty big hole," said Akaku, viewing the scene only to find a blonde standing near another blonde and a chain connected at his torso. "Looks like we found our spirit," said Tushiro as he and his partner went down and went to the blonde who had a blank expression seeing his own corpse. Hitsugaya quickly grabbed his Ryotsu detector and flashed it through the blonde before him. The reading didn't satisfy the white-haired Shinigami and tested it on himself, revealing the appropriate spirit power. Tushiro scratched his head in annoyance and flashed it through the blonde again. What he read made completely shocked him. "What the? Spirit readings are above 4,000, said Tushiro at this. Akaku grinned, and whistled again as he read the expression of the young kid's face. "Pretty impressive for a newly dead person," said Akaku as the blonde then looked at him and asked. "Who the hell are you? And how can you see a dead person?" "Idiot, of course we can see dead people, we're dead as well, and we're supposed to be Shinigami," said Akaku. Although Naruto was about to take offense at what the bald man said, he chose to constrain himself as he believed it was not the time to be childish. He is supposed to be freaking dead now. "Wait, you said Shinigami, but last time I checked there was only one Shinigami, and he happens to look uglier than the bald dude behind the one with the white hair and doesn't wear black." "What, I'll freaking impale you," said Akaku, taking offense from the blonde from being called bald and ugly. "I have a name, you know. My name happens to be Madarame Akaku," said the bald, about to draw his blade, and Naruto immediately readied himself. Swordsmen were easy to read. They were either hot-headed buffoons always itching for a duel or a calm and deadly killer who waits for his opponent to draw the first move. Naruto saw Akaku as the former rather than the latter as he drew his sword, but was later halted by the one with white hair. "Akaku, shut up for a moment," said Tushiru, turning towards the blonde then. "The name's Hitsugaya Tushiru, and that dude you happened to piss off, you heard him right. As for the creature that you said, it was an apparition of the death god or the king of Saratii. As he exists in another dimension, he moves mysteriously in his workings and agendas," said Tushiru, and Naruto nodded. Now that he's dead, he should at least try to know the basics of living as a spirit. "Now, we need to send you to Saratii as it is part of the duties as Shinigami, which no doubt, you will be doing in the near future," said Tushiru, and Naruto nodded. "Wait, before you send me to that place, at least let me see my own funeral before I go," said Naruto, and the two accepted. "Okay, but you have a time limit," said Tushiru, and Naruto asked. "Why? Since your chain of fate is now destroyed, you are mere days away from turning into a hollow, a creature that devours souls as a source of food. Naturally, once the chain of fate is completely consumed, the human soul undergoes a drastic metamorphosis, a mask replaces the face, and erasing the spirit's memories to tune in with the hollow's natural instinct," said Tushiru. Although Naruto didn't get much of it, he still nodded and kept the basics of what the white-haired boy's head. "Right, so staying here for too long equals bad," thought Naruto as he then waited for at least someone to take notice of the situation of his corpse. Hours later, Naruto was utterly shocked by the amount of shinobi that had appeared on the scene, and along with the Godem, along with the Konoha shinobi, there arrived with the team of Kakashi and Yamato, complete with the 3 members of Habi who were healed not too long ago. What they saw shocked them. There on the crater lie 11 corpses, 10 of which were clothed in the attire of the world-famous organization, the Akatsuki. They were killed on the spot as blood seemed to spread everywhere around them. Then the one in the middle shocked all of the Konoha ninja the most. There in the middle of the crater lie one Uzumaki Naruto, facing down on the ground completely lifeless, no signs of breathing and blood splattered everywhere around him, and then the one holding in his right hand were his treasured Hite, the necklace of the Shodem, and the container of the healing salve Hinata gave him way back from the Chunin exams. Most of the ninjas were in silence, and the Godem kneeled down and turned the corpse of the said blonde, and yet again surprised Tsunade. Right then and there, the blonde hyperactive ninja, hated by many and loved by few, was smiling in his death with a few small droplet of tears falling from his face as if he wanted to say, "I'll never forget." With this, the Godem, last of the Sannin, cried in front of the corpse as the rest of the shinobi bowed and closed their eyes in sadness, sympathy and prayers, while some literally poured their hearts out by crying. "I have shamed Namikaze-sama. Not only did we fail his son to be treated as a hero, we had also failed in letting him live in happiness," said one of the shinobi, crying as he took off his mask while he bowed. "Naruto-kun," said Hinata as she was kneeling on the ground yet again, devastated from her only love's death. Tsunade got up. As she saw the smiling face of the young blonde, she stood up with her resolve, and she knew what she had to do in order to close the last chapter of the tale of Uzumaki Naruto, a tale that Jiraiya started, Naruto continued, and Tsunade ended. Today will be considered a new age. Not only did one shinobi defeated the greatest threat to the world, but he also proved himself to be a true Konoha ninja and a true Hokage. For that, I deem thee my successor, Uzumaki Naruto. Be the Rokudame Hokage, said Tsunade, and everyone yelled, "Rokudame-sama Banzai! Long live the 6th, said every ninja in the field as they screamed his name to the heavens, giving praise to the greatest Hokage that has ever existed. Naruto suddenly wept. Not only did he finally achieve his dream, he had finally received the love of his village. "Hey kid, you know it's tough leaving the world of the living, but rest assured, you're going to start anew at a new place now," said Akaku. Although extremely brash, he knew how to not push someone's buttons at a time like this. "We'll be coming back in a few hours. Until then, make sure that you don't get into trouble," said Tushiru as they headed out to patrol in another area. Tsunade, deciding it was time to get Naruto back to Konoha, cradled the blonde in her arms and picked him up, walking away from the scene and not looking back. Finally, the tale of the greatest shinobi ends. Hinata was the last to go, but as she was about to leave, she glanced back and saw something that was supposed to be Naruto standing to where he was supposed to have died. Hinata rubbed her eyes and checked again. No one. She felt disturbed as to what she saw and decided to turn away before the pain in her heart gets worse. Konoha. Everyone arrived in Konoha, relatively unscathed except for Kakashi's team, with the Godem leading the troop. The villagers immediately saw the one she carried in her arms. It was the accursed child, in her arms looking pale, no color on the lips, no signs of movement, just a limp body. A corpse. If anyone were to make something insulting, it would have resolved into a decapitated head done especially by the Hokage herself. But also, the villagers have come to respect the blonde ninja in the arms of the Godai, so there was no need for a drama in the middle of the streets of Konohagakure. Some may have sneered, but it was the old men who were arrogant and considered themselves wise beyond their years only to be stuck in their own little delusions. The villagers, out of fear of the Hokage and some respect for the blonde ninja, did the most unexpected thing. They all bowed. They bowed at the deceased blonde ninja, as the shinobi that the Hokage had at her back all looked down, in mourning as they headed towards the grave of the Hokages. Then in one fell swoop, Amino Iruka arrived at the scene, just having brought a few groceries and a present for Naruto as a gift for finally getting back in the village. But it fell as he saw his favorite student and foster child lie dead in the arms of the Hokage. Iruka felt his own world collapse from the sight. He rushed towards the Hokage, and looked at the blonde, then back to the Hokage, who solemnly shook her head. Iruka fell silent and finally, he too, mourned. He then talked to Tsunade. "You know, Naruto and I once had a conversation when we were walking home from Ichiraku," said Iruka, and Tsunade listened closely. "He foreshadowed his own death, said to me that if he were to die and be buried, at least take his coffin to the river and let it sail along with the true family he never knew," said Iruka, and Tsunade respected the request. That afternoon, there arrived the coffins of Yondaime and his wife, Uzumaki Kushina, all of which were sent alongside the coffin with the title, "Sixth" written on it. It was then placed on a sturdy wooden raft along with the other two, as had it sail away filled with flowers and cards towards the afterlife. This time, Hinata yet again saw Naruto standing supposedly at her side with a smile on his face and suddenly vanish again. Now Hinata knew Naruto was signaling his goodbye to them, to the ones that cared for him the most. She let out a small tear, but this time, it was tears of joy that filled her. Later that afternoon. "Looks like you're ready to go," said Tushiro. Naruto nodded and went towards the two black kimono-wearing soul reapers. "Prepare for the Kansu, soul burial," said Ikaku as he unsheathed his sword. Naruto thought he was about to be in a world of pain. Wait a second. Don't slash M, said Naruto as he was hit with the bottom part of the hilt and vanished in sight. "Well, that's that, I guess. Now we need to go there immediately and enroll him to the Shinigami Academy," said Tushiro, and both left the world of the living to go back to Rukongai. Uzumaki Naruto did not like how he entered the afterlife. First, he had almost angered a Shinigami, or a soul reaper, not the death god, for indirectly insulting his missing locks and almost Yakuza-like face tattoo that painted at the outer side of his eyes. Naruto swore it was make-up first, but knew to stop to not anger the aforementioned Shinigami any further. Second, he had entered Rukongai via Kansu, soul burial. Not that anything was wrong with the ritual itself, but it was the part where he arrived at Soul Society that he was pissed. He didn't expect to be literally dropped at Soul Society. How was he to know that the means in getting to Soul Society means you were to be sent down from a 100-foot altitude that almost represented Gamabunta's gigantic leap? Finally, when the blonde former Jinchuriki got up, he didn't like what he saw. There were people all right, but it wasn't the afterlife that he was expecting. There were slums everywhere. Malnourished children ran through the streets. Fights would almost pop out anywhere, and the place looked like a lawless town that came from a movie. "Shit," was all Naruto could say as he clearly saw another brawl occurring at some rundown establishment. Naruto put his hands in his pocket and was about to turn around when he saw another fight about to break out. As if on cue, one of the bystanders got involved, and it was a little girl no less. Naruto dashed at the scene as fast as he could and tackled the girl out of the way as she was about to get slashed by a man that held his blade on his shoulders. "Watch where you swing that thing," shouted the blonde, getting up with the girl in his arms that had shoulder-length black hair and donned a pink kimono. "You okay, kid?" asked the blonde, and the girl nodded silently. "What's the big idea, huh? You think it's cool just to swing a sword like that, punk?" asked the hot-headed blonde, turning around facing an irate man with a scar on his right cheek. "What did you say? Huh? You think that I could care for a little kid? I'm a Shinigami and I demand my rights as one," said the man, and Naruto frowned. "Flaunting your own authority gets you nowhere with Uzumaki Naruto." "Who gives a shit?" said the blonde, and charged at the man with fists head back and aimed towards the man's face. The man grinned as he swung down his blade, effectively halting the boy's advance towards him. Naruto stopped for a second and thought directly assaulting a swordsman would get you killed. It was one way of putting it. Jiraiya had taught him tactics, and as such, he was also taught on how to predict your enemy's next move just by seeing his attitude. Naruto then grinned. He then used his favorite technique in handling thugs in the past. Immediately doing a middle index cross seal, Naruto channeled what he thought was chakra in his body. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, thought Naruto, and nothing came. He wondered for a moment why he couldn't do the jutsu. He definitely felt something, but nothing happened. The man's irate-looking face turned even more irate and swung the blade downwards again. Naruto, on instinct, dodged the blade by sidestepping on the side and using his left foot. The blonde stepped on the flat side of the blade and jumped up. Naruto then gave a roundhouse kick to the man's face that sent him hurtling to the ground, skidding towards a wooden sign that hit his head, effectively knocking him out. Thank goodness for those taijutsu lessons, thought Naruto as he then ran away when a sound of the whistle was heard. He did not like talking to authorities, a lesson he learned while he was still alive and was very young. What he didn't know was the little girl following him closely behind as he ran. Sarati. It was just another day at the Soul Monitoring Department. Monitor any civilian activity in Rukongai. Mostly, the occasional fights would spring up and a small amount of Ryotsu was detected, easily maintained. It was when one of the fights that sounded a code red in the area. "Sir, abnormal amount of Ryotsu has been detected at Rukongai. It's unlike anything we have seen before," said Tachibana. He pointed to a red dot that was quickly moving from its initial point. The reading was giving off an abnormal amount of Ryotsu. It was so strong that it made some of the members of the department running around with lousy compiled papers in their hands that had some falling on the ground and plunged the whole department into chaos. Now the head of the department, Ichiro Hikawa, scratched his head out of sheer curiosity within himself. "Why did I take this job again?" thought Ichiro, seeing one of the office mates in the area bump into each other and starting an argument with one another. "Sir, the abnormal Ryotsu, we're losing it," said Tachibana, and the red dot on his screen was moving faster than the Shinigami could go after. This only made the department much more panicky of the situation, and a lot more people ran to and fro inside the department. Ichiro, finally having enough of his department's antics, yelled from the top of his lungs. "Calm the hell down, you bunch of maggots," and as if on cue, everybody stopped and fell silent as all attention went to the head of the department. "Tachibana, continue to monitor the anomaly. Yeah, the guy who tripped from some of the paperwork, get your ass up and help in the cleaning, the rest of you don't panic," said Ichiro, and everyone agreed. "Sir," Tachibana was about to report, but Ichiro cut him off. "Tachibana, yes, sir, shut your trap," with Naruto. It had been a while since Naruto was running. He stopped when he heard footsteps that was almost at the same pace of running as he was. Turning back, he quickly noticed the girl he saved from that hoodlum, going after the blonde who for the life of him, never knew why he was being chased. He stopped near the river when he was now out of town and got rested. He noticed that the girl was still tailing him. Deciding to finally know why he was being chased, he looked at the direction where the girl was and finally asked. "Okay, kid, what's wrong? Shouldn't you have gone back to your parents or something?" asked the blonde, and the girl shook her head. "Okay, no parents mean you're an orphan. How long have you been here?" asked the blonde, and the girl continued to shake her head. He knows that expression very well, unfamiliarity. It was an expression he had when he was a child in Konoha. "You're new here as well?" asked the blonde, and the girl nodded vigorously. "I see, tell me kid, what's your name?" asked the blonde, and the little girl replied meekly. "Saya," said the girl. "Okay, tell me Saya-chan, how did you end up here?" asked the blonde, who then grabbed 3 senbon. Running away from a bunch of respectable officers gave him an appetite. She shook her head. She doesn't know how she got there. Naruto then decided to let it slide for now. He had better things to do, and the grumbling in his stomach didn't help. Man, he was hungry. Just then, as if on cue, 3 fish had jumped from the water, and Naruto immediately hit all 3 with precise aim, and all of them hit the stomach. Saya clapped her hands together at what she saw. Naruto couldn't help but smile at the little girl's awe of Naruto's skills. "You never saw that one, did you?" asked the blonde, and the girl nodded vigorously, who then had her own stomach grumble from hunger as well. "I like you, Saya. Come here and have some fish with me. I could tell you the tales of the great Uzumaki Naruto when he was still alive and kicked a lot of ass," said the blonde. Maybe he wasn't a wise parent, seeing as he just cussed in front of a kid. Then again, he never knew how to raise a child. So a few hours later, "Then I went, eat fist bastard, to that idiot that called himself a prodigy," said the blonde, motioning a punching motion towards the air, and reenacted the scene where he and Sasuke fought at the Valley of the End, with Saya listening intently on the older blonde with his tales of heroism. To this, the girl was in awe of the blonde. Naruto then grinned and then lifted Saya through her underarms and let her sit on Naruto's shoulders. "All right, Saya-chan. We're heading towards the sunset for new adventures," said the blonde as he and his new companion on his shoulders walked west towards the sunset indeed. After a few minutes of walking, Naruto stopped. He didn't know what he was feeling, but it all felt familiar, as if someone is releasing a killing intent all around him and Saya. "Crap. This isn't going to be good for Saya," thought the blonde as he kneeled down and kept Saya close to him. Saya grasped Naruto's clothing firmly, and for the first time, she asked, Naruto Nichan, what's going on?" asked the girl, and Naruto replied, "Oh, nothing. It's just some baboons coming out to play with Nichan is all," said the blonde, and out of that statement, there appeared 5 thugs that were at least as scruffy looking as the one he just fought a few hours ago. "You little shit. It's payback time for what you did to Aniki," said one of the thugs, and Naruto gave a sigh. "Isn't there a moment of peace and quiet in the life of Uzumaki Naruto?" thought the blonde as he ducked a swipe of the blade and gave the man a rising kick to chin that sent him hurtling upwards. Naruto wasn't done yet as he jumped a little and spin-kicked the man towards one of his so-called brothers. "Apparently not," said the blonde, who gave a sweep kick to one of his enemies when he was assaulted with a horizontal slash. The man lost his bearings as he was about to fall, but Naruto timed his fist and connected it to the man's gut as he fell down and had sent him flying towards a nearby tree, effectively knocking him out. "3 down," said the blonde, who was then attacked by a man who swung the blade with a horizontal low slash. Naruto then grabbed Saya and lifted her up and jumped as well before the sword could connect and did missile kick at the man's face. Naruto backflipped and landed like a cat perfectly on the ground with Saya still in his arms. "You still want to fight?" asked Naruto, turning to the last, and hightailed it out of the area after a frightful display of fighting by none other than the blonde Jinchuriki. "You alright, Saya?" asked the blonde, and Saya nodded with stars in her eyes. "Naruto Nichan is the best," said the little girl, hugging Naruto's neck. "Hee, I'm glad you know, Saya," said the blonde, setting the little girl on his shoulders again, and walked away. "Sarati. Well, looks like we can handle things from here," said Kyan as he received the call from one of the members of the Soul Monitoring Department. He just received an order to investigate the abnormal Ryotsu that lingered in Rukongai a couple of hours ago. Weird though, he did feel a powerful amount of it. He didn't believe that the Ryotsu went by undetected when it entered Soul Society. Most likely, because of the abnormal amount of Ryotsu, the Kansu differed in trajectory, thus eliminating the fact that it went through the Soul Arrival Department. Kyan gave a defeated sigh. Just wish that this be an easy assignment. Just then, he saw the 2 who had just finished their duty in the elemental countries enter the warp gate. It was the Madarame Makaku and the new kid that was said to be a genius, Hitsugaya Tushiru. "So, has the new soul been detected yet?" asked Tushiru, and Kyan answered, "By that it means one of you 2 gave the Kansu ritual to it. Care to tell me what she looks like?" asked Kyan, and Tushiru just said, "It's better if we come along with you, he'll recognize us as soon as we see him," said Tushiru, and Akaku grumbled. "Whatever, I need to rest. I got me some training to do later on," said Akaku as he then proceeded to the 11th division. "Well, that leaves you in my team. We better get to that place, the tracks are getting cold," said Kyan, and Tushiru nodded, both vanishing with the rest of the Shinigami patrol unit. With Naruto and Saya. Both Naruto and Saya stared at the building with the big muscular arms that had a sign that says, Kanju, Guts. "Whoa, the person who lives here must be pretty flashy," said Saya, and Naruto had to agree. Although he himself was a flashy ninja, this was way too flashy. Just then, another grumble of the stomachs of Naruto and Saya had forced them to knock on the door. "Who's there?" came a voice that sounded dual in Naruto's hearing. Could it be that his own sense of hearing starting to decrease? He didn't think so when Saya talked. "Hey, misters, do you have any food?" asked Saya, and two figures suddenly stood on the stone fists each. "Who disturbs the noble house of the Shiba." Both of the men then gave their own poses that looked like it came from a kid's show. "Now the only thing that's missing is a red and yellow smoke," said Naruto, and both men hit their closed hands with their palms. "Oh, forgot to do that, sorry, wait there for just a moment," said one of the twins as the one in yellow went down and grabbed some explosives. He then placed the explosives at the base of the arms and then jumped to the top with a plunger in his arms. He then, along with his twin, gave yet again another weird pose, and then the one in yellow pushed the plunger, effectively sending out red and yellow smoke. But the shockwave sent the stone pillar of muscular arms bent towards the house. The two immediately then, out of panic, went to the base of the pillars and supported each of the pillar, thus withholding the fall of the stone fists. "What in the ing blazes in Soul Society is distrubing my house?" said a voice, and Naruto set Saya down to see who had such a high volume tone of voice. He then proceeded to peek at the entrance as his face met with the foot of a scantily clad woman that attacked with a flying kick and who had green hair. Naruto was sent hurtling towards the ground at insane speeds that looked like he was just ran over by the snake giant Manda. "Da, Naruto Nichan," said Saya, dashing towards her adoptive brother. "I'm okay," said Naruto as he gave an "I love you" sign with his hand and laid there on the ground with spirals in his eyes, a bloody nose and legs spread eagle. "Naruto Nichan," said Saya as she then shook the blonde to get him out of his funk. "Well now, you two are new faces. Were these two idiots entertaining you?" said the woman, who then pointed to the men who had their legs shaking while trying to support the weight of the stone pillars. Saya nodded and Naruto slowly got up, clutching his head in pain. "Ow, what hit me?" asked the blonde, shaking his head and then opened one eye. "Apparently my foot," said the woman, who then offered a helping hand. Naruto, without so much as a second thought, grabbed the hand and let himself be pulled up. "Damn, you kick hard," said the blonde, rubbing his swollen cheek. "Not many people get up from a kick like that in a few minutes. Your name, kid?" asked the woman, and Naruto dusted himself off and said, "Uzumaki Naruto," said the blonde, and the woman replied, "Your name's stupid fishcake." "My name's Shiba Kuakaku," said the woman. Naruto was about to retaliate from her remark but decided not to because of the kick. Naruto's stomach as well as Saya's began to rumble yet again, signaling their hunger. Kuakaku howled in laughter as she then went inside and dragged both Naruto and Saya inside her house. A couple of hours later, Kai and Shiba had a rough night. After assessing some of the streets of Rukongai with the promising Shinigami, Tushiru, he had no such luck. Kaien then took the opportunity to ask Hitsugaya Tushiru about the description of the said spirit, while the white-haired Shinigami scoffed it and said that he'll just come along with the black-haired man to find the spirit, even if it meant sleeping at his house. Kaien sighed. How is he going to explain this to his sister? Kaien and Tushiru arrived at the Shiba clan house and was met with none other than Kuakaku herself at the front. "Oi, Kaien, we have some guests for tonight, so you know the drill, manners and all that crap," said Kuakaku, walking inside with her hands behind her head. "Guests? Guests? In our house?" screamed Kaien, completely surprised. Never, in all of his years of staying in the Shiba household, he had never had guests come by his house, mostly because they were afraid of his little sister, and in fact, even Kaien himself was afraid of her. If someone were brave enough to go to the Shiba household to be entertained by his sister, then they have to be the biggest morons in the highest order. Kaien then grabbed Tushiru by the collar and dashed towards the dining area. He immediately turned and slammed the door open, revealing a spiky blonde-haired boy wearing orange and black with half-eaten noodles in his mouth, and a girl with shoulder-length hair and wearing a pink kimono had chopsticks in her mouth as she was chewing some rice. "Oh, sorry for the intrusion," said Kaien as he then closed the door, and as if time and space had warped his mind, he regained some of his composure and reopened the door again. "Oh, so this is your brother, Yo Shinigami-san," said Naruto, waving his hand with the chopsticks. Saya did the same. So this is where you are?" said the white-haired Shinigami, who then proceeded to the blonde's side. I see you're here as well, Tushiru. Mind if I know if you and Kai and Dono are friends? Asked Naruto, and Tushiru replied. Sort of. Anyway, do you know how much trouble you caused for this day? Asked Tushiru, and Naruto scratched the back of his head. Ehehe, it wasn't my fault, said the blonde half-heartedly, and Saya immediately cut him off. That's right. Ni-chan was awesome. He went like. Saya then proceeded to mimic the moves her older brother, where he gave a sweep kick only to trip and fall down. Naruto laughed a little and let his chin rest on his left hand. Saya-chan, you're so active, said Naruto, as he went to Saya and let her stand. He then proceeded to dust of Saya's kimono, and Naruto fixed her hair. There, good as new, said Naruto as he patted young Saya's head. So this is the kid that got all of Soul Monitoring Department in a panicky frenzy? Asked Kaien, and Tushiru nodded. Kaien then grabbed his Ryotsu detector and scanned Naruto. He then lightly swung the detector on his palm and then scanned the little girl Saya. He was satisfied. A reading of 432. Okay, that's fine. Then to Hitsugaya, that had a reading of 1000. Seems to work fine. Then to himself, which read about 850. Okay. He then scanned Naruto with it. The Ryotsu detector then started to give off numbers. As he paused for a moment, the result was the same as what had Hitsugaya stated. Holy shit. Above 4000. Said Kaien, with Naruto covering Saya's ears as she was laughing at what the man said. Kuakaku then appeared by Kaien's side and then proceeded to pound her brother's head. No cursing in front of a kid, goddammit, said the woman, and then kneed Kaien on the chin, which sent him upwards. Kuakaku then caught the neck of the poor older brother and proceeded to shaking his head. I said you show your manners to guests and you call this manners, said Kuakaku, continuing to choke her own brother, but was then interrupted by Tushiru with a cough. Yes, although we would like to continue this warm family reunion, we really need Naruto-san to come with us along with Saya-san. We need them to enroll into the Shinigami Academy if they have such high spiritual power, said Tushiru, and Kuakaku scoffed and dropped her brother on the ground, who was twitching. Mother, was all Kaien could whimper. No wonder why he was scared of his own sister. Whatever, take them with you. I don't need freeloaders in my house, yelled the woman as he stormed out of the dining hall, while Naruto and Saya just looked confused. Well, now that's taken care of, why don't you guys come with us? Asked Tushiru as he then lifted Kaien on his shoulders for support. Follow me and I'll inform Yamamoto Taiko about your arrival, said Tushiru, and Naruto grabbed Saya's hand. Well, looks like we'll be Shinigami from now on, Saya-chan, said Naruto, with the little girl raising her hands with glee. Naruto couldn't help but smile at the girl's enthusiasm. Is this how a father feels like? Thought Naruto as he left, holding Saya's hand with his other hand in his pocket. Naruto Nichan. Let's go. The white-haired midget is outside waiting, said Saya. Naruto chuckled a little and said. Okay. But no name calling on anyone, all right? If that guy heard you, I don't know what he'll do to you. Okay, was Saya's reply, and then saw Tushiru waiting for them. Sarati. It was quiet in the Court of Pure Souls, unless you involve the meeting inside the Gote. Court Guardians. 13 inside the central room. Each division, represented by their respectable captains, was discussing on the event that had occurred throughout today. It is indeed strange that we encountered someone who's had a Ryotsu as almost as big as a Manos Grande, said the one that had the number 7. He then adjusted the helmet. Damn it, it was hot wearing such a damn piece of armor just to hide his face. It looks like this guy is strong, said the man wearing the white haori with the number 11 written at the back. Humph, such a commotion over one simple spirit, aren't the authorities here just taking this way too seriously? Asked the female of the group with the number 2. Maybe, maybe not, all we know is this person was able to bend the Kansu with just Ryotsu alone, said the one wearing the number 5. A most interesting individual, I might say, said the one with the haori engraved, number 12, adjusting his striped green and white fisherman's hat. The one in the middle, sitting in his place, then hit the ground with his cane to silence everyone. It is as you say, the person that entered Soul Society suddenly without the immediate detection of the Soul Monitoring Department, has an abnormal amount of Ryotsu, a Ryotsu vital should we encounter a Manos, said the old man, who then stroked his beard. Tell me, just where did the boy come from before he died? asked the old man, and the one in the white haori wearing the number 3 had informed him. According to the report, it seems that the young boy named Uzumaki Naruto had arrived from the elemental countries, a world completely different from the world that we Shinigami world. Although hollow occurrences are rare, most of the strongest Shinigami there end up joining the other dimension of Saratii, to where the King of Soul Society resides. However, there are a few exceptions if the Shinigami that comes there are to be the Shinigami that exist here. There is also the so-called 50-50 case, since most of the souls that come from there aren't guided by the Shinigami. There are also rare occurrences where people that come over here from that place use a technique that forcibly summons the king into that dimension. Since then there has only been 2 instances of this, one of which involved 3 people. Very well, since the matter has been resolved already, I ask of you to please go to your respected divisions and rest. Meeting adjourned, said the old man as he yet again hit the floor with his cane, and the members of the Gotei 13 captains went back to their own rooms. The old man then stood up and walked away, seeing as he was met with a man who had his hair spike at the back and sporting a goatee and wearing the standard black kimono and hakama that were bound by arm and leg bracers and was supported inside by a fishnet armor. He asked his captain. "How did the meeting go, Captain?" asked the person, looking considerably younger than expected. "Nothing to worry, Sarutobi, as you can see," said the old man, who then went to the balcony to stare at the moon. "My division is probably the smallest of the Gotei 13 right now, seeing as it is currently made up of only 5 members, said the old man. "Yes, it is true, and it is also fact that there are no rankings except captain when joining the 1st division, said Sarutobi, grabbing his pipe and began smoking. "Though there is a promising Shinigami right now that is about to join our ranks, I feel as though his lecherous ways would bring the name of the 1st division to shame," said the old man. "Worry not, Captain, as I will keep my former student in check. There is also the matter of his novels. Have you not read them?" asked Sarutobi. "Ah, that, of course I have, although erotic in nature it still serves as entertainment for some of us," said the old man, and both laughed. "Indeed it does. There also another one that would be joining the ranks as well. It seems we are expanding," said Sarutobi, and Yamamoto replied. "True. The young Uzumaki is someone that has the most promising abilities right now in the Shinigami, though I fear his wild and brash attitude would suit him more in the 11th division than the 1st. "You forget that someone is also an impulsive brat here," said Sarutobi, mentioning that man. "Ah yes, I forgot about him. Remarkably talented he was, in being a shinobi and a Shinigami. Also learns fast in the way of Kido," said Yamamoto. He then flipped a folder as he looked at the names of the members of the 1st division. They were all made up of none other than the former Hokages of Konohagakure no Sato. Naruto couldn't really understand back then the importance of education, probably because he wasn't such a good student back then, and maybe the fact that most of the teachers of the Shinobi Academy hates every fiber of his being, thus resulting in the teachers retaliating to the blonde in indirect ways, that is, except for Iruka. Iruka, Naruto wondered for a minute as he thought of his foster father, but back to the explanation. Well, the teacher's plan worked. Naruto regretted the fact that he didn't listen much to lessons back then, thinking that muscle was much more important than mind, and that the only logic in the world was the strong shall be recognized while the weak will remain obscure. "Boy, that was probably the biggest mistake I made my whole life," thought Naruto, and Saya snapped him out of his funk. "Nichin, we're already here," said Saya, pointing at the door to where they were staying for tonight. She was yet again sitting on Naruto's shoulders, with Naruto holding her ankles so that she wouldn't fall. "You looked dazed there, Nichin. Are you thinking of something?" asked Saya as she bent her lower torso to have an eye contact with his brother. "Sort of, Saya-chan. Why don't we settle for the night?" asked the blonde, and Saya groaned. "Ah, I still want to stay up, Nichin. I want to hear more stories," said the girl as she yawned, and Naruto chuckled a little. "And your body says that you need your rest, Saya-chan. A grown girl needs her rest," said Naruto, and Saya pouted. "But I'm still a kid," said the girl, pulling Naruto's hair. "Ow, I know, Saya-chan, but you still need your rest. You don't want to get sick, don't you?" asked the blonde, and Saya sighed. "Okay," said the little girl in defeat, and Naruto replied. "Now that's a good girl," said Naruto, and Saya cheered up. She was just so happy to be with her Nichin. Inside the room. "Okay, Saya-chan, time to go to sleep," said Naruto as he tucked the little girl in her futon. She was restless as him sometimes. After unwillingly giving her a bath, Naruto felt exhausted chasing the little girl around with only a towel on. I guess that's the hardship of fatherhood, said Naruto as the little girl dozed off to be embraced in the arms of slumber. And I thought I had stamina, said the boy as he set his own futon and fell asleep, too tired to do anything anymore. Later that night, Saya awoke suddenly. The seemingly cold air had almost made her chill. She then reached for her pillow and then got up and walked over to Naruto's futon and gently shook the blonde. Nichan, said the girl, shaking the blonde, to which Naruto half awoke. The blonde groaned a little and turned to face the little girl that was shaking him. Saya, what's the matter? Asked the blonde, and Saya was holding her pillow, who almost had tears swelling in her eyes. Naruto then saw those telltale signs: tight grip on the pillow, restlessness, and a feeling of an almost traumatic event. Nightmare? Asked the blonde, and Saya nodded slowly. Now, ever since Naruto was a kid, whenever he had nightmares, he couldn't ever go to sleep again, mostly because there was no one for him to go to at that time, and more often than not, he doesn't experience the whole comforts of sleeping since the nightmares were often. Naruto frowned at those memories. The cold nights that no one embraced him was so etched to his mind that he couldn't forget so easily. He then came upon the conclusion that he wouldn't deprive Saya of that and scooted over to the side to gesture that the girl can sleep on his futon. Here, Saya, come and sleep over at Nichan's bed, maybe you can sleep better, said the blonde, and Saya wiped her eyes and nodded. She went under the blanket of the futon and placed the pillow aligning with Naruto's. She then lied down and Naruto tucked her for the night. Saya felt relieved as she was close to her brother. She then fell asleep, letting nothing else disturb her after that. Morning. Naruto awoke when the sun's warm touch had reached the blonde's face. He shielded his eyes as he got up and noticed that someone was sleeping at his shoulder. He then looked at his left to find the young Saya sleeping soundly at his shoulder. He gave a warm smile and gently woke Saya up. Saya groaned and rubbed her eyes. It was easily detected that morning has come as she yawned and stretched. We better get dressed, Saya-chan, we wouldn't want to be late for our first day, said the blonde, and the girl stood up with a huge smile. Okay, said the girl as she got to her uniform and got dressed. Naruto did the same and a few minutes later, went out and got to Academy. Shinigami Academy. Naruto didn't really like wearing the long sleeves of the kimono. So he customized it by cutting the sleeves shorter with his kunai, making the sleeves reach just above the elbows to not hinder his arm movement. For the hakama, instead of it being more loose than it originally was, Naruto tightened it a bit by binding it with some senbon and iron wiring. For now it was to decrease drag and hope that enemies wouldn't capture the uniform so easily, and instead of wearing the white socks and straw sandals, he wore his black ninja sandals since his moves require maximum movement. Naruto then grinned. Form versus function, I guess, thought the blonde, and saw his younger companion wearing the standard kimono uniform. Naruto then paid attention to something else. Naruto stood at the enormous building wearing his new attire, along with his adopted sister, Saya. The two headed inside and began to start the day at a new school, at a new afterlife. What Naruto was in for was the least shocking moment in his afterlife. Entering the academy, Naruto saw many of the students that were at least as young as him or 4 to 6 years older. He noticed how some are even at least 10 or 15 years older than him, with Saya being the youngest sitting on his shoulders. Naruto then flipped the paper that the white-haired Shinigami gave him. Let's see, first class is Hakuda, thought the blonde, who then proceeded to the designated classroom. A few hours later, Naruto found the class boring. There were a lot of lectures that the instructors were giving rather than actual combat and application. He then thought the style taught at the Shinigami Academy was way too inferior from the style that the Hyuga's Juken or even Maedagai's Goken. Body positioning? What crap! It should be applying your mind and use it to predict the next movement or so, thought Naruto, knowing full well why the Sharingan became the most feared Kekkei Genkei in his world. Naruto then did the unthinkable in class. He yawned. The instructors quickly noticed this and quickly asked Naruto what was boring in the class. Naruto didn't say anything since he was only half awake and thought that it was unimportant. He was reverting back to his days at the Shinobi Academy. If you think that this subject is boring, Uzumaki-san, how about we test on you using our class top student? Said one of the instructors, and Naruto grinned. Finally, thought the blonde as he got up and faced the man that was waiting for him in front. Alright, since Naruto-san was eager to demonstrate how effective the lecture is, we will have Hisui-san demonstrate on where to strike next, said the instructor. Everyone looked at the said Shinigami standing up, and immediately some girls screamed for the man that stood as flamboyant as a certain someone back in Naruto's world. Makes me pissed just thinking about it, thought the blonde as he was faced with the pretty boy of the class. The boy ran a hand through his hair and the whole female Shinigami population screamed like harpies inside the room. Okay. Most annoying person in class, check. Fangirls, check. Underestimated blonde newbie, check, check, check. He's going to have a nice meeting with my fist, thought the blonde as he went to his stance unfamiliar to a Shinigami. Instead of the usual stance of raising the fist, Naruto leaned a little down and spread his arms reaching his waist, the stance that he learned from the Toad Sennin, Minai Cage, the unseen shadow. He then waited for the arrogant boy in front of him to do his stance, which took a while as he was tossing roses everywhere. Where'd that come from? Oi, are you ready to fight or not? Asked the blonde, getting impatient. To this, the pretty boy smirked and laughed a little. Okay. Just don't cry when I hit you. The man then dashed at the blonde ing a fist calmly, and ducked, going for an uppercut at the blonde. Naruto shrugged it off. Amateur, thought Naruto as he blocked the uppercut by grabbing the wrist upward, lifting Hisui, flipping him over and then slamming the pretty boy on the ground. I thought I was going to cry when you hit me, said Naruto, who scoffed at it. The pretty boy, enraged from the blonde's antics, charged at the boy and threw a kick. Naruto again blocked it and pulled Hisui closer. Naruto ate his fist back and aimed at the stomach. He then let go of the punch and sent Hisui flying backwards. Man, what a drag, can I get back to my seat now? Said the blonde. The instructor was about to do so until Hisui shouted out. No one betters me, said Hisui, who charged again at the blonde and aimed a direct punch. Naruto turned around, and on instinct, the blonde reacted immediately, stepping in front, halting Hisui's advance in a flash, and then blocked the blow by stopping his shoulders. He then edged back his right arm and gestured the hand to hit the man with its most distal part, the side of the hand where the pinky and palm meet. Naruto then aimed it at the man's chest, supposedly square to where the heart was located. In theory, if enough force was applied and hit the heart, it could cause a cardiac arrest, something that he was taught when the Toad Sennin was still alive. Kanazuchi Ken, hammer fist, thought Naruto, but was stopped when the lecturers contained him. That was an almost fatal blow. Naruto-san, where did you learn such moves? Asked one of the instructors. A hermit once taught me how to do it when I was alive, said the blonde, and one of the Shinigami yelled. What the hell were you? Some kind of shinobi? Asked one of the rude females, and Naruto smirked and replied. Don't know, you could be right, and you could be far from it, said the blonde as he sat down with Saya, congratulating her. Nichan, that was awesome, said the girl as she gave her a hug. Akamon, Saya, we're still in class, said Naruto, looking embarrassed as he yet again placed the girl on his shoulders. Naruto found out that the place was boring, too formal to his taste. He also found out that unlike his Shinobi Academy years, he was excelling in the lines of becoming Shinigami. He had excellent understanding of Kido, had ample training with Zanjutsu and Hakuda. Surprisingly, he quickly picked up all the lessons. Thought Kido was as easy as ninjutsu, and with his experience, it became a whole lot easier. For Zanjutsu, he didn't know how to use a sword back in his genin days, though he was still genin, but the years of using multiple weapons made somewhat of a user of a sword as well. Then came ho-ho or stepping techniques. Naruto wasn't much of a speed-based fighter, but he did learn the most important jutsu that all shinobi should have, Shunshin. Although Naruto barely used the technique, thinking that his clones were enough to give wide openings of his enemies, Shunshin became almost unneeded, unless you count the times that he had to run away every time he was caught with the perverted Sennin who was peeping with him, usually being dragged into it. Naruto then came upon the conclusion that his ho-ho skills were only above average on what was supposedly attainable to students, though the blonde thought that it was more than enough. Saya proved to be on par with most of her classmates, small in stature, but she was nimble. She had a short reach and lacked the strength to combat stronger opponents, but she made up for it with her speed, agility and leg strength, thus making her excel in ho-ho. Needless, Naruto blazed through the Shinigami Academy at the first 4 years. Then came the materialization of their Zanpakuto. Naruto was asked to concentrate on the field with the highest concentration of spirit particles. Naruto did so and closed his eyes. Meditation was one thing that he learned that could calm a person down, clearing his thoughts, all forms of emotions, all forms of rationality, just clearing his mind. Before long, Naruto found himself in a hilly plain, with literally hundreds of windmills as far as the eye can see. Winds were blowing to controlling the direction of the spin of the windmills. The grass and the trees made sounds as the leaves rubbed at each other. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto then noted how peaceful it was until he saw a figure who had been wearing a blue overcoat with fur designs at the neck and 2 holes on the sleeves. It had the sign of wind on the back. He wore gray pants and a pair of orange goggles at his head, with a white long-sleeve shirt underneath and a necklace that was identical to the shoden. It complemented his wild and spiky gray hair at his head and a long tail of hair reaching to his lower back bound by a small rubber. A long cut of a slender grain was placed in his mouth acting like a toothpick and brown boots that reached just on his lower ankle. "Yo, partner," said the figure, and Naruto hastily replied the people at the academy never taught him this. So with a thought the blonde had suddenly asked the person in front of him. "Who are you?" "I'm Zanpakuto partner and I'm giving y'all a chance to obtain me sword if y'all answer me riddle," said the silver-haired man. Naruto didn't very much understand it, but he quickly did so anyway. "To those that have it bring forth darkness, to those who want it bring forth death, but in the end, it is something that is malleable because it can sway and can bend. What is it?" "Humph, easy, it's power. Those who have it, bring forth darkness," said Naruto as he was reminded of one Uchiha Madara. "Those who want it, bring forth death," said Naruto thinking of his former best friend, Sasuke. "And just like you say, it's malleable, it can sway and bend." Naruto was then reminded of the Hokages. "Correct you are, partner," said the man as he vanished with the blowing winds. "I am your power. For a long time, you have wanted it, and for a long time you had it. But you bent it, made it sway the other way. Now, I bring forth to you the blade that shall serve your purpose." Shinigami Academy. Naruto suddenly opened his eyes and found the blade in front of him, complete in its own scabbard of scarlet red. A hilt of pure green and a golden guard. Pretty awesome," said Naruto, grabbing the blade and unsheathing it, letting it glow in the bask of the sunlight. Now there's only the name. The day then ended with Naruto and Saya going back to their house with their respective Zanpakuto. The days went by fast as both Saya and Naruto improved. Naruto especially, in the ways of Zanjutsu and Kido. He never thought just how fun blowing things up was, guided with a supervisor of course. Then the day came when they had to do a practice in the world of the living. Looks like we'll be having a routine hollow slaying test," said Naruto, looking around with the students he wasn't familiar with. He then saw 3 students together, 2 boys 1 girl. One had spiky red hair tied to a ponytail, a girl with short brown hair and a pale blonde that had his left eye covered with a few strands of his long bangs. Naruto recognized them immediately. During his stay in the academy, they were Aburai Renji, Hinamori Momo, and Kira Izuru. He wasn't very close to them, but he did recognize them and had small talks with them from time to time. But since Naruto had no one he knows in the academy other than Saya, he decided to join them. "Yo," said the blonde, and the 3 turned around to find the blonde who stood before them with a little girl sitting on his shoulders. "Oh, if it isn't Uzumaki Naruto, the Shinigami prodigy, how's it hanging?" asked the ever-brash Renji as he then placed his hands on the back of his neck. "Oh, not much. I just figured I need to hang around with other people since I don't know that many here. Besides, it's nice to have some company," said the blonde, and the 3 smiled. They would gladly let the young Uzumaki join their group. When the test started, Naruto and his small group stuck together instead of what the others did. They stuck as a group. They took out hollows in an orderly manner with Naruto's strategic tactics. But soon as the tests were about to end, trouble brewed up. Naruto could feel the dense energy around him. The hollows were growing in number as time passed. He didn't exactly know why, but the growing suspicion inside the blonde was stirring. Years of being a shinobi made his mind in overdrive state once he knew that there was something bound to happen. He knew it was there, but he just wished that for once, his shinobi instincts were wrong. 1 hour later. Naruto cursed his intuition for this day. He didn't like the fact that he was right for once. He could see hollows everywhere, and these weren't just hollows. They weren't the low-level ones that Shinigami in training could handle. In the heat of the assault, he got separated from his friends. He was getting irked as he dashed from area to area to find them. Saya was with them. "Shit," said the blonde as he cast another Hedo spell on a hollow, puncturing a hole through its mask, making it dissolve. "Where?" He slashed one of the hollows, effectively dissolving it to dust. He then jumped up to get a higher view of the situation. "Where are they?" said the blonde as he then cast two Hedo spells at once. "Byakurai, white lightning," said the blonde, concentrating his right index finger, a surge of white light. "Shakuho, shot of red fire." Red scarlet energy glowed on his left hand. Ever since his first encounter with his Zanpakuto, he always had a peculiar ability to manipulate the spirit particles around him, like what he used to do with chakra. So instead of casting the spells, he had spirit particles convert to his desired element. He then fired both simultaneously and blasted through 4 hollows at once. "Where are Saya and the others?" screamed the blonde, landing in front of the hollow and gave a wicked rising slash at the face as his anger was slowly rising. "Get thee out of my way, you ing hollows," said the blonde, being surrounded by the monsters with white masks. "RRAAHHH," screamed the blonde as he manipulated the spirit particles around him and slammed the ground with his left foot, effectively creating a small fissure that shook some of the monsters. They all jumped towards the blonde, who had no chance of escape. Before Naruto could react, he was brought down by the monsters that he was supposed to hunt. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes and he could see the windmills once again. He had slowly raised his back to sit down, to find the person he had a conversation a long time ago was facing him. "I never thought we'd have a conversation like this again," said the blonde, and the silver-haired man grinned. "That's because ya were careless, partner. Ya made anger get the better o' ya," said the silver-haired man. "That's because, it's completely understandable, partner, but ya have to let emotions step aside if ya want concentration maintained." To this Naruto fell silent. The silver-haired man then tilted his head to the side and viewed the windmills. "Just like this here windmills, it does whatever it needs to be done without getting their wheels banged up. If ya could just do the same." "All right, I've learned that lesson now," stated the blonde as he stood up and looked at the windmills. "Right now, I need to find them. I don't want my anger filling me in now, or else I could eventually kill myself because of it. That's the spirit, partner, and because of that, I feel that I can peacefully give Yami name now, but remember, I'll only give it to you this once. I ain't giving it to you again unless you're really okay in me book." "Huh? Hear me out this once, partner. My name is Human World. Teki wo Kiritateru. Fusion. Slay all of your enemies, Wind God." The place where Uzumaki stood was suddenly engulfed with the wind as it blew the hollows upwards, effectively cutting most of them in the air with a sudden gush. Naruto stood on the ground with his sword held up high, completely changed. The blade was longer than it should have been. The guard had extended downward in a curve, giving it knuckle guards. 4 long strips of bandages were connected to the hilt that had the characters of the 4 main directions of north, south, east and west. Naruto panted. The power of the sword was strong, and he couldn't properly control it right now. With his knees feeling like jelly, he collapsed from the fatigue, his own sword reverting back to its sealed state, and dropped on the ground as well, succumbing to unconsciousness. A stream of white light was seen before he could close his eyes. "Saya." 2 days later, Naruto groaned. He could feel the pain that coursed through his body. It was hell. He slowly let his eyes open to find that he was lying in bed, with 2 faces directly staring at him. "Oh, I see that you are awake, Uzumaki-san, thank goodness," said the woman with long black hair and motherly-like appearance. "He has pulled through. We thought that the sudden surge of Ryotsu would have killed you, Uzumaki-san," said the other one, who had short but curly white hair. "Where am I? And who are you?" asked the blonde as he got up. He clutched his head in pain. "I am Unohana Retsu, captain of the 4th Division, and this is my second in command, Katetsu Izan, and you are at the 4th Division's ward," said the one with the long black hair as she checked the blonde's chart. Naruto looked at the place. He could see that the place resembled like that of the hospital down to the smell of the disinfectant. Before he was about to set foot on the ground, he immediately felt a chin run down his spine. "Uzumaki-san, you are still injured. It would be best if you could just stay here for a couple of moments," said the captain of the 4th Division. Naruto didn't know why, but he felt scared all of a sudden and immediately went under the sheets, shaking visibly, and thought. Crap, 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 thought the blonde, and he thought the injuries were supposed to get better, not worse. 2 days after, he was released from the hospital with a clean bill of health, but before he could even step foot on the Shinigami Academy, he was met with a very teary-eyed Saya and his 3 companions that had helped him during the practical exams. "Wah, Nichin," said the little girl, running up to him and hugging him tight while crying. "I thought you died," said the little girl, and Naruto frowned. He looked at the 3 in front of him. "Who in the right mind told you that?" asked the blonde, and all 3 of them looked away as if they had nothing to do with it. Naruto frowned at the 3 but quickly got over it as he placed Saya to sit on his shoulders again. Naruto then was brought back with his musings in using his Zanpakuto. He was able to call upon his Shikai for the first time, but felt such a huge power that it drained of almost if not all of his Ryotsu that day. His inexperience with the said weapon was what brought him to that state. He frowned further. He needed to retrain himself again. This time, he was going to control his power. Naruto awoke as the warm touch of the sun reached his whisker-marked cheeks. As he got up, he stretched his arms and left Saya, who was still lying on his food, and he then got outside holding his Zanpakuto sheath. The morning outside brought upon was a sight to behold for Naruto. Though the mornings in Konoha were nicer, this was a pleasant second. The morning dewdrops made the mornings cooler than usual, and made a more mystifying effect on the foliage that was in front of their dorm. Naruto then readied himself. He spread his legs a little and let his right hand hover over the hilt of his Zanpakuto while letting his left hand grasp the scabbard of the blade firmly. He then closed his eyes and used an old training method of shinobi that was proven to be very effective since the time of the Shodem, meditation. With his mind devoid of any thoughts, the blonde ignored the rustling sound of the leaves, the chirps of the morning birds, and the touch of the early morning breeze. He remained silent, concentrating, and as soon as he was in his most prime state of meditation, a gentle breeze was what he felt, slowly building up. He could hear the noisy rustling of the breeze and the creaking of the cogs of thousands of windmills. Naruto then opened his eyes, and once again, he was in the realm of his mind. "Yo, partner," Naruto turned around seeing the embodiment of his laid-back sword, Fujin. He then grinned and the sealed form of his sword appeared in his right hand. "A light training session before going to the academy for the graduating ceremonies, wouldn't you say?" said the blonde, and Fujin flashed the Shikai of Naruto's Zanpakuto. "You said it, partner." Both combatants vanished from their respected positions, and in a flash, sounds of metal clashing against metal could be heard throughout the plains. Clang! 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 Both fighters suddenly appeared on top of one of the windmills, as Naruto and Fujin clashed their weapons in a deadlock. Both swords clattering from the force of what the two gave. Fujin deflected the blow, and once again, both fighters vanished in blur and reappeared at the open atmosphere of Naruto's mindscape, slashing their respective weapons at each other and earning a powerful shockwave that disrupted the flow of the wind inside the realm. "You've gotten strong, partner. Methinks it's time to finally let you take me Shikai. I'm more than confident that ya can clearly see the road of what path ya chose, partner." Naruto grinned as Fujin deflected the attack and Naruto stepped back. Naruto then ricocheted from his position to the ground and suddenly appearing on Fujin's side, with the tip of his sword poised to strike Fujin at his left torso. Fujin blocked it immediately by letting the thrust hit the edge of his blade, nullifying the attack. "Very good, partner, now you're really ready to use me," said Fujin, and then forgot about something. "Oh, yeah, almost forgot. The graduation ceremonies are about to begin, partner. I suggest we stop this for now and get her little sister ready." Fujin then hit the palm of his hand with a closed fist. "Ah, shit, I forgot," said the blonde, being elated in the middle of training. Naruto forgot the most important part of the day of what was to come, division assignments. "Sarati." Naruto frantically went into the room, immediately. He shook Saya awake, who groggily opened her eyes and wiped one of it with her hands. Saya saw her Nichin frantically putting on his hakama, and while skipping to boot, he then grabbed his kimono and grabbed Saya's own uniform. He immediately undressed his adopted sister and dressed her so fast that it almost seemed like the suit only had one hole and was easy to pass through. Saya was still groggy and Naruto was really panicking. He then grabbed Saya and placed her on his shoulders, and the two immediately vanished thanks to Naruto's shunpo. Shinigami Academy. "Ah, I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. I'm late," chanted the blonde, going through the crowd of students who were scratching their heads seeing the genius Uzumaki panicking for something that will happen. 5 more minutes later, Naruto had arrived at the area where the supposed graduation would take place. Panting heavily, he placed Saya down, who was now fully awake and was happily running about. "Yo, never thought that you'd make it here." Naruto immediately knew the voice. He tilted his head up and saw Renji, Kira and Momo, who were there with no black kimono and Hakama in their arms. "Hey, made it," said the blonde as he got up and drank some water that Momo had generously given him. It was then that the voice of one of the instructors that the quintet immediately recognized that had them go inside the venue. Once inside, the 5 people noticed the long table that had 13 seats, and in the middle was the largest seat, reserved for the captain general. With the announcement held by the instructors, the students as well as the captains went inside the compound, with the captains acting as representatives of each division. Naruto then noticed one of the more familiar faces in the crowd. It was Tushiru. So he turned into a captain, huh? Must be impressive for a kid, thought the blonde, and one of his friends had immediately called out. "Shiro-chan. You're so smart. I never thought that you would become captain that fast," said Hinamori, waving her arms, with Hitsugaya shushing her and telling her to call him by his proper name now, Hitsugaya Taiko. "Welcome, dear graduates of the Shinigami Academy. Today, as proud Shinigami that you are now, I, Genryusai Yamamoto Shigekuni, captain of the 1st Division and founder of the Shinigami Academy, congratulate you for finally completing the 6-year course," said the elderly one sitting in the middle. With his cane settled in both his arms, the old man then grabbed a bundle of papers away from his position. "Today marks the day in which you will be given division assignments. Please do us all proud," continued the old man with the long beard, as one by one, the students were assigned to their respective division. Naruto thought it was exciting. The very thought of going out on a division, compared to a team, this was a much more invigorating. Naruto had hoped that he would join the 2nd Division, wanting to maintain his shinobi-like lifestyle and the chance to once again leap from treetop to treetop. The thought of striking enemies when they least expected, and the chance to finally solve his problem in creating ninjutsu here. Then finally, it was time that his name was called out. The old man had kept Naruto's patience to a point where he was shaking from both annoyance and excitement. "Uzumaki Naruto," said the old man, who then stood up. "As all of you know, the 1st Division rarely takes in any followers, mostly due to the fact that the 1st Division has high requirements to enter. One of which would be the mastery of all fields of being a Shinigami." At this, the students, soon to be Shinigami, nodded and knew exactly where the general captain was going with his speech. A Shinigami should uphold all their responsibilities to the maximum of his or her capabilities. Naruto then knew what was going to happen. They're the saviors of the lost souls, balancers and the guiding light of the departed. With this, the Shinigami is held responsible in maintaining the balance of the spiritual world and the world of the living. The 1st Division now welcomes the Shinigami, Uzumaki Naruto, for his outstanding performance in the academy and the excellence he has shown to be a great and promising warrior of Soul Society, said the Captain General, and with that the graduates clapped for Naruto. Naruto was in a daze. He never expected to be in the 1st Division. Sure, he may have been doing well in the academy, but he never thought of actually being accepted in the 1st Division. From what he heard, only 5 people were selected to join the 1st Division, and it happened once the Captain General approves that they be placed with the best division, his division to be. In fact, it seemed the aged captain has high standards in obtaining his subordinates. "Damn," said the blonde without knowing it. He walked towards the stage, and instead of receiving a formal hakama and kimono, he received a black haori with flame designs on the bottom and on the sleeves, with the title inscribed on the back, Rokudame, 6th. Naruto scratched his head. Did the 1st Division somehow knew about Naruto's past, and he would be privileged to wear a different formal clothing for such a prestigious division? Shaking his head from his musings, he awaited for Saya's uniform. "All new Shinigami, please report to your corresponding unit assignments tomorrow," said one of the instructors, with the blonde still dumbstruck while holding his hakama and kimono. The next day, Naruto wore his orange jumpsuit with the badonded with the haori with the flame designs, with Saya snugly strapped on his shoulders. Both teens marveled at the architecture of the inner Saratii and the main tower of the 1st Division. The main tower was tall, He could see that there were 4 large chains strapped on the 4 corners of the tower itself. Its pyramidal-shaped rooftop was crafted from gold, and Naruto could feel his mouth water at how much money he would make just by swindling that thing. Hold that thought for a moment. The dead have no use for money. Oh yeah, how could I forget? Naruto sighed and resigned himself to not caring about money anymore. He was a dead person after all, and money he had no use for. During his musings, he had almost failed to notice that the captain in front of him stopped as he approached the large gate of the First Division. Naruto gasped in awe as the door slowly and creakily opened. The First Division captain then walked towards the large chair sitting in the middle, with Naruto noticing the 5 members of the division standing and facing each other and then looking at the blonde. "Welcome to the First Division, Uzumaki Naruto," said Yamamoto. Naruto stood astounded as he stared at the members of the First Division. They're right before his eyes. The Hokages were standing as well as Jiraiya. Naruto had his jaw dropped as he saw the 5 people that made Konoha as it was now. Jiraiya had a scowl on his face. Wasn't Naruto the prophesized child? Then why was he here? Did pain kill him? What happened to the elemental countries? He was about to ask all of his questions when his former student then asked him. "Sensei." The voice asked. Oh, how could he forget? His father was here. Jiraiya had resisted the urge to face palm himself. To this, Naruto turned his head and then started to shake. His fists were whitening and his anger was slowly rising, but he couldn't let his anger get the better of him. Time and time again, he had reminded himself that the man that stood before him only wanted to do what was best for the village, but try as he might, there was still something that made his blood boil. Was it for the ungratefulness of the villagers back then about the fact that he was chosen to hold the demon and not be treated as the hero he should be? No, although it was his doing to which Kyuubi was sealed inside him, he wasn't the one at fault for the villagers' blind hatred. Was it because he had chosen to not name him as his official son? Again, he thought, no, when in the situation as that of Naruto's, one could understand why he should be given his mother's maiden name. There was no one capable enough of protecting him, and although there were strong people to protect him, say Kakashi or Jiraiya, they were hardly parent material, and that meant Naruto would have been dead before he was 1 or turn out like a pervert before he was 10. Was it because he left him, unknowingly letting himself be alone and become the village pariah because of his own father's idealistic beliefs? Probably. Naruto hated idealists because they were driven solely by their goals that would be achieved in doing the impossible, like how Pain wanted to achieve unity by forcibly applying his own beliefs to the people around the world. But before he could even start on the Yondaime, Naruto reminded himself that he too was an idealist. "You hypocrite," thought the blonde to himself as he then saw the white-haired man's head turn towards his old man. "Yes, Minato?" asked the white-haired Sannin. "Why is my son here?" Jiraiya had to shake his head, not knowing the answer. "Why don't you go ask him?" said Jiraiya, pointing his finger at the blonde-haired whisker-marked boy. Minato gestured for a shake of his head, giving hand signals that his son might have some beef with his old man. Jiraiya sighed, and his shoulders slumped. The Shodai then whispered to the Yondaime who was positioned at his side. "He's your own son. Why shouldn't you talk to him? You know blood is thicker than water, right?" Minato nodded unsurely. "So why don't you talk to him?" asked the other this time. It was the Nidaime. "Oh okay," Minato uneasily answered, slowly approaching his own son, the one he damned with the life of a Jinchuriki, the one who he irresponsibly left behind, not knowing that his wife died the same time as him. "Yo, Naruto," said the older blonde, forcing a smile on his face. "Ah." The younger uneasily unanswered, "I see that you've grown." "Yeah, and I would've if it wasn't for that Pain bastard and that dumb playing Uchiha Madara," said the blonde. He turned his gaze away from his father. "I'm sorry," said the older one, and the blonde then looked at him. "Not a problem, it wasn't your fault," Naruto said flatly. "I'm sorry," continued the older blonde, feeling that his apologies would require him more than just 7 times. "I told you already, it wasn't your fault," said the blonde. Not even 2 apologies and he was already getting annoyed. "I'm still sorry. If it wasn't for me sealing the Kyuubi within you, you would have lived a normal life," said Minato. "I know that, damn it. I don't want to live in the past anymore. Let's just forget it ever happened," said the blonde, screaming. Jiraiya had sighed. At least he didn't start a brawl in here. But Naruto, But nothing, don't make me remind myself of all the times I had to take shit and rack up points of being the town jester just to get people psychotic enough to kill me inside the damn village away from my hide. Said Naruto. His fists were already shaking. This wasn't turning out good. Naruto, please, I've already done enough damage as it is. I just want to compensate for my past mistakes. So what? So you can satisfy your own ego. I can't stand you. Naruto. That's no way of talking to your father, said Sarutobi. By now, Saya was being scared. She never did see her big brother getting angry and she couldn't understand why Naruto had to be angry with his own dad. Naruto, please. You have to understand that I did all that for the greater good. By what? Making the Kyuubi have intelligence. Making the village hate me entirely. Having a shady organization built by psychos after me and forcing me to always be on the run. Not only that, have an untimely death with all said psychos after a suicide attack. What the hell? Well, ain't that a good example of fatherhood? Naruto screamed, sarcasm noticed in the air. That's why I'm Appo. No, I've heard enough, said the blonde, about to draw his blade hidden in his black haori, the fourth side, as he too tried to draw the blade that remained hidden in his white haori. Saya had to jump away, landing on the captain's side of the chair. Naruto, I want you to calm down, don't make any stupid mistakes, said Minato. Our fight here, now. We settle things the old-fashioned way to knock some sense on the one that wipes the floor, said the blonde. Taicho, do you agree? Asked Sarutobi. It seemed that there was no way of preventing this. Let's just leave those two for a while, it's nice to have some excitement once in a while, said Yamamoto, who stroked his elongated beard and then laughed amusedly. Oh well, at least all of us could gauge the newest member's abilities, said the Naidame. Mind placing bets, sensei? Anyone? Asked Jiraiya. No thanks, and that isn't how a former teacher to his students is supposed to act, said Sarutobi, and Jiraiya dropped his head. Teki wo Kiritataro. Fujin. Slay all of your enemies, Wind God, said Naruto, and the long blade began to take form. Its 4 long white paper strips with the characters of the 4 main directions danced in the wind as the Zanpakuto's Shikai was released. Shikai already? Asked the Shoden. Naruto was never one to hide his own abilities back then. However, what he had hid back then was the fact that he could take anyone by surprise, come up with strategies that could crumble anyone's skill in just a flash, said Sarutobi. Oh, by that, you mean to tell me that he could overwhelm someone more powerful than him with sparks of brilliant strategies from time to time? Asked the Naidame. Yes, not only in fighting, but also in applying and using his jutsus. I remember the kid mastering the Rasengan in 3 weeks by applying the shadow clone technique, said Jiraiya, grinning. My god, Jiraiya, are you serious? Asked Sarutobi, and Jiraiya replied. You weren't around that time anymore before Tsunade was deemed the Godem, but Naruto was able to learn and master the Rasengan in 3 weeks' time that would have normally taken him 3 years, though his version is more of a watered-down version, said Jiraiya. You mean in terms of power, right? Asked Sarutobi. Jiraiya gave Sarutobi a smirk, and Sarutobi caught on. No way. Naruto did it in another way. Sarutobi looked shocked. Naruto, son of Minato, created a scientific breakdown of the Rasengan, and that's when he didn't even notice it. Naruto, I'm sorry, but you need to calm down. I know, it was my fault, but please, calm yourself, said Minato. Enough talk already. Release your Shikai and fight me, said Naruto. Minato gave a defeated sigh. He guessed this was the only way to knock some sense to his own son. Very well then, I'll show you, said Minato, holding his sword with both his hands and then raising it above his head. Hiramekasu, Hiraishin. Flash, flying thunder god. Minato then outstretched both his hands sideways and out came 6 talismans, 3 for each hand, and all of them had seals written on them. That's a very weird Shikai, said Sarutobi. Ah yes, you weren't here when you witnessed Minato's Shikai. For some reason, all of us here have an affinity to our past lives, at least, our Zanpakuto does. With Minato, he was given a rare lightning-based Zanpakuto, which gives him a very powerful ability, said Sarutobi. And that would be? Look and you will see, said the Shoden. Naruto then, after seeing the form of his father's Shikai, immediately used a Shunpo and appeared on his father's side. Minato easily saw the blonde going for a thrust on his right torso, so immediately, he swiped his talismans at the blonde's long sword and the blow was parried to Naruto's right. Naruto then let the momentum continue and turned around, slashing his father's other side of the torso, to which Minato evaded by jumping. Minato then released his talismans from his hands and began to surround the area by approximately 12 meters each. "What the?" asked the bewildered blonde as the talismans glowed a yellow light aura and then Minato disappearing and reappearing in a blur. "Shit," thought the blonde suddenly when his father was at his side. Naruto then performed one of his Zanpakuto's abilities. The character for South then glowed a blue light. Tatsumaki. Tornado. Naruto then spun uncontrollably, forcing dust particles and wind encircling him in a torrential whirlwind. Forcing Minato step back and touched one of the talismans, which turned into a normal-sized katana. Minato again jumped in a blur and suddenly appearing on the top of the tornado's vortex. Minato then aimed his sword downward, spiraling his way down. Yellow Ryotsu glowed with his sword in a thrusting motion, surrounding Minato, and then dashed towards the epicenter of the tornado. Naruto felt the presence of the Yondaime there, and then evaded to the right. Damn, his Shikai is one tough cookie to crack. However, it seems that the sword is an area effect Zanpakuto. This guy wouldn't be running fast if he was outside of the field. Naruto thought about it and grinned. He dashed away from the field. As he was nearing one of talismans, Naruto felt a sudden jolt of electricity hit him as he was approaching the border. "Damn, I can't get out," said the blonde as he turned around, his father recovering from the crater he made. "Guess I'm going to fight him in a handicap," thought the blonde as the character symbol for North glowed in blue light. "Kamikaze. Divine Wind," thought the blonde, and soon, there were plenty of Narutos suddenly appearing and reappearing with the blonde vanishing in sight. All of the Narutos dashed towards Minato with the tip of the sword pointed towards him. Naruto then suddenly appeared in front of him. Minato was surprised. Naruto wasn't supposed to be this fast. As Naruto was about to deliver a fatal blow to the chest, the sword had only managed to graze Minato's right shoulder. Minato gritted his teeth as he then saw that several cuts appeared on his right shoulder. Minato had to take a step back. He measured the distance the two had. Approximately 3 meters. Thought the Yondaime, as he then pointed his finger at the blonde. "Byakurai," said Minato, and a flash of blue light jolted from his index finger shooting at Naruto. Naruto sidestepped and thought. The same ability to control spirit particles. Damn, thought Naruto as he then prepared for his Zanpakuto's next ability. Positioning the sword sideways, in a horizontal motion, the character for East glowed blue and Naruto swung his blade. Kazahana. Wind Flower. Naruto swung his sword and 4 wind disc-like buzz saws the size of king-sized dinner plates surrounded Minato. "What the?" Minato said as the buzz saws prevented his any unnecessary movements. "Like our own prison trick, Fusion has his. Kazahana prevents any movement. Any sudden movement would cause Kazahana to rip their target altogether," said the younger blonde, and Minato grinned. "Oh, you think so?" asked the Yondaime, and then disappeared and suddenly reappeared on his right. This time he was holding 2 blades. "I've concluded that your Zanpakuto's abilities are indeed for both offense and defense. Your Kamikaze is indeed powerful, more so possibly than Komamura Taicho's Tenkan Heaven Sword. If it managed to hit me. I'm sorry, son, I really am," said Minato sorrowfully. "Then tell me," said Naruto as he then gazed at Minato. "Did you, or did you not know that it was Uchiha Madara who summoned the Kyuubi?" asked the blonde. "Yes, I did. That's why I made the Shiki Fusion, Demonic Reaper Seal, in order to siphon his chakra to yours, absorbing his powers. I separated his yin chakra and placed his yang chakra to yours for you to use at an early age. As you grew, the seal grew weaker as well as Kyuubi. By that, the bloodlust of the Kyuubi's chakra would lighten, and that would lightly turn the seal around, unlocking the final process of the Shiki Fusion." "And that would be?" asked the blonde. "Complete absorption." Madara knew that without the Biju, his plans would be worthless. He also knew that it was impossible in extracting all of them by himself. That's why he created an organization to hasten up the process. What he didn't know was by the time of your 16th birthday, you would have completely absorbed the Kyuubi, meaning that all his power would be bestowed to yours and that everything the Akatsuki worked for would have been in vain. Naruto then dropped his Shikai, resealing it in a normal-looking katana. He sheathed it into its red scabbard. The Kazahana immediately vanished and Naruto looked at his father with a smile, then turning to full-blown laughter. "What's so funny, kid?" asked Jiraiya. "Just the fact that all those bozos were trying to win a losing war, and with myself no less," said the blonde, howling in laughter. Naruto's laugh soon changed to tears, as he had realized that if he hadn't done that earlier, the seal would not have worked. That was why the Kyuubi asked such an unsure question. "Naruto," said Minato, about to approach him, as the back of his head was suddenly kicked by someone who was wearing the standard Shinigami clothing. Long fiery red hair had swayed in the wind. Her beautiful features were not to be ignored as well. "OWW. Damn it, Kushina, and I was hoping to say something cool to our son," said Minato, rubbing the back of his neck. "What you talkin' bout, Minato? Is my son dead? 'Cause if he is, then I hope this is a joke, because this isn't even funny," she said as her eyes glowed in sparks, cracking her fists. Jiraiya had shivers running down his spine. "Well, what do you know? I think it's almost time for my research to commence again," said Jiraiya, sneaking away from the temperamental redhead. "Hold it, Ero-sensei," said Kushina, and the white-haired 50-year-old stopped tiptoeing away. "Crap, crap, 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 crap," Jiraiya thought as he was sweating bullets. "What the hey, Dad, who's she?" asked the younger blonde, with Saya miraculously back on his shoulders again, taking a peek to the side, and Kushina could clearly see Naruto. "Well, to put it simply, she's your mom, kiddo," said Minato, a sweat drop appearing on the back of his head and laughing nervously. "Naruto!" yelled the red-haired former kunoichi, as motherly instincts overcame everything else and hugged her long-lost baby. "You just had to make yourself known, didn't you?" asked Jiraiya, and Naruto's mother glared daggers at the pervert's way. "After I finish having this heartfelt reunion, I'm going to personally castrate you, Shinigami or no Shinigami," yelled Kushina, and Jiraiya started to run. "Come back here, you promise-breaking pervert," said Kushina, not even letting go of her son and not even bothering to chase after him. Mom, why are you not chasing after him then?" asked the blonde. "Because, sweetie, Jiraiya is a masochist," said Kushina. To this, Naruto covered Saya's ears, who was about to ask what a masochist was. "Yeah, another question, Mom? Go ahead, sweetie. Could you let go of me now? I think you have a grip of a bear and I'm starting to feel really weak from oxygen deprivation." "Oh, sorry, it's just that I missed my baby so much," said Kushina. She rubbed her cheeks against her son's. Kushina eyed her son warily, measuring him up, looking at the different places of his son's body. The said blonde felt like shuddering from her gaze in fear. It was like being checked by a company commander for decorum. It was terribly flustering. Kushina was by no means a very dainty girl. Hell, if she would be compared to the living, she would be as dainty as inner Sakura was. That meant she was hot-headed enough to shatter someone's teeth than trying to get her way in talking, much like Hinata was. Kushina then looked at the little girl on his shoulders, Kushina still eyeing her son carefully. "Son, are you this kind of sick pervert?" she asked. A glint of anger was flashing from her eyes. "Because if you are," her waist-long hair was beginning to rise as her Ryotsu reacted with her emotions. Naruto, meanwhile, quickly waved his hands to deny any weird thoughts his mother would have. "No, Mom. I swear. The way you're thinking is just gross." "Then is she your love child?" This time, Naruto could feel the Ryotsu in her sinking back, as she ducked her head to not let anyone see her eyes. A moment later, her eyes were already watering down her face. "You never even introduced me to your wife." "Wah," Kushina sobbed. Her husband behind her, shaking his head, and gently tapped his wife's back. Naruto, meanwhile, just dropped his jaw on the floor as he tried to process what his mother just said. Meanwhile, his former sensei Jiraiya patted him on the back while saying, "That's my student. So who was the girl? The eyes are a bit different, but the hair is a dead giveaway for that Hyuga girl that's been crushing on you since you were 12. Said Jiraiya while Naruto flustered even more, mumbling and babbling like an idiot. "Your kid hitting on a Hyuga? How far along did the customs change while I was dead? And how does she look?" asked the Nidame, Tobarama. "If looks were to go by, I'd say Hyuga women are on top tier. As far as customs go, inbreeding is not uncommon in the Hyuga family, but I don't know if it changed when Sarutobi took seed again. It's been 16 years since I bit the dust." Actually, since Sarutobi died, Hyuga politics inside the clan changed. It was in Tsunade's rule that she abolished the practice of the caged bird seal, said Jiraiya. So, does that mean that an outsider can now be involved in clan affairs? And how's my precious granddaughter? Asked the Shodem. Unfortunately, no clan business is still clan business. It just made some of the elders inside the Hyuga consider marriages between non-clan status shinobi and clan status shinobi, said Jiraiya. No, Mom. If I had Saya as my real daughter, I would have impregnated a woman by 10. Though it's pretty sad of me to say this, I died a virgin, said Naruto. To this, Kushina brightened, returning back her radiant smile. Era. How silly of me. I thought she was a product of juvenile delinquency. She suddenly turned bubbly and pinched Saya's cheeks. You're so cute, Saya-chan. You wouldn't mind joining our little family, would you? She said, with Saya having to nod between the pinching of her adopted mother. Minato meanwhile, held his son by his shoulders. This time, it was his turn to cry. My son hasn't scored a girl in his lifetime. This is just too sad. Minato then used his left forearm to wipe away the tears from his eyes. What, you mean my student of the great pervert sage, Jiraiya, died without ever scoring a girl? Jiraiya practically screamed. Naruto blushed and mumbled something about loud-mouthed idiots. Ahem. To this, all the members of the 1st Division, including the 4th seed of the 11th Division, Kushina, looked at the man, coughed out loud. It was their captain. Yes, now that we know the new member of the 1st Division, I hope some of you would show our dear Greenhorn the ropes around Saratii, said Yamamoto, who stood from his chair and walked towards the exit. By the way, that was an interesting fight. Naruto, continue your progress and become a strong Shinigami. Hurry and catch up to your peers, said Yamamoto, and with that, he walked away from the 1st Division barracks. Naruto. You go out there right now. Get yourself a girl and get laid this instant. I will not have you tarnish the name of the gallant Jiraiya. To this, he was kicked on his crotch and fell down like a sack of potatoes. No one is to blemish my son's innocence like that, Kushina practically yelled, as the one who did the act. Son, maybe we should go outside and have a little talk, said Minato, and Naruto agreed all too willingly. Once the introductions were over, both father and son went outside, first with discussing how Naruto's life was when he was alive and then how the Yondaime remarked his son about his bad taste in clothes and colors. Hey, I've been able to trick countless morons with my stealth. Consider this thing as a handicap. The blonde defended. The Yondaime merely said that as a member of the 1st Division, one had to wear their clothes formally and in benevolence, and the reason he'd been able to trick ninjas in stealth with that color was because most of the people he'd been able to trick were cannon fodder. To be flashy means to stand out, and people of the 1st Division already do, but the added attention would be too much already. Naruto and the Yondaime continued to walk around Saratii with Saya still sitting on his shoulders and her cheek resting on the blonde's hair, asleep. As they turned around, they saw a rather flashy man, wearing a white haori symbolizing his status as the captain. An unshaven beard made him look rough, and a straw hat donned on the top of his head, while another haori, this time pink, covered the white one, adorned with countless designs of falling cherry blossoms. Oh, Minato. What are you doing here, and who's the one wearing the bright orange suit that looks like you? Asked the man. Ah, Kyoraku Taiko. I didn't expect you to be here. This is my son, Naruto. I was talking to him about some of the guidelines here in Saratii, and I was about to tell him our uniform, said Minato. The man named Shunsui gave off a grin. He's the spitting image of you, Minato. Kushina must be smothering him with affection, said the captain, thinking how lucky Minato was with his wife. All the while as he tapped the blonde's shoulders and walked away. The blonde's keen sense of smell suggested that the man had just finished drinking sake. Hey, Dad, asked Naruto. Minato turned around and looked at his dad questioningly. That guy was carrying 2 swords. Aren't Zanpakuto supposed to be a single entity and a representation of your inner self? Asked the blonde. Kyoraku Taiko is different. His twin Zanpakuto is just there. No one can explain the Shinigami's Zanpakuto except that it is the representation of our inner selves, a personality different from our own, a person within a person, and so on, said Minato, and then he added, Kyoraku Taiko has a unique Zanpakuto in that it's a twin sword type. It's a rare one, that's for sure, said Minato, and Naruto merely nodded. As they toured around Saratii, Naruto felt more at ease with his father, finding the different barracks and meeting some of the Shinigami along the way. Naruto felt more at ease, maybe he can trust his father. Little by little, time skip. 7 years. 7 years had passed since his untimely demise. And Naruto could see the people that he knew back at the academy slowly rise from their positions. Renji was now a 3rd seat in the 6th division. He was transferred from the 11th division 3 years ago, that was then transferred from 2 years back and had slowly been rising to the top. The same could be said from Kira, who was now 4th seat in the 3rd division. But most surprising was Momo, after the 5th's former lieutenant was promoted to captain status on the 3rd division, with no one to take his place. The 5th division's captain, Aizen Sosuke, promoted Momo to lieutenant status. To Naruto though, it all seemed weird that Aizen would earnestly pick out his friends by recruiting them immediately from the academy, and if that wasn't weird enough, he had heard that he showcased his Zanpakuto's ability to all of the present lieutenants except for the 1st division's, which was Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage. Naruto was also just as suspicious, if not, creeped out of the 5th division's former lieutenant, Ichimaru Jin. Something about that smile reminded him of none other than the Kyuubi no Kitsune's feral grins. He had learned not to try and trust those type of people, creatures. They were not the honorable type, to say the least. Right now, Uzumaki Naruto was monitoring the entrance to Rukongai, adorning the standard Shinigami uniform, only sleeveless, and the red flaming haori donned on top of the kimono, waiting for incoming souls of the dead, looking over at the Shinigami assigned to collect said souls and then registering the names of the newly dead people in the paper on the table. Just as he was about to yawn, he had seen a very familiar face from his world. Had his eyes deceived him? Or was that Hinata? A Hinata that had not aged since his death? Impossible, but he had to know for sure. Hinata? Asked the blonde. The said girl turned around, and to her surprise, it was none other than her long-dead friend and crush, Naruto. What are you doing here? How did you die? Asked the astonished blonde. Hinata meanwhile, sat down by his side and said to him, "After you died, I made it clear upon myself that I would change my resolve and be stronger through all of this," she said as she recalled the last day of her life. Flashback. 7 years had passed since the faithful passing of the Rokudaime Hokage, 7 painful years of not seeing the sunshine smile and the deep ocean eyes of his anymore. It was heart-wrenching, but the day that she last saw his smile was the first time she realized of how much regret she had when she had not gone and said it. But with his last smile came a newer and stronger resolve, his promise to change the Hyuga, a promise she was willing to continue for Naruto. In his loving memory, the Godem had done her part. She officially said his successor and had his face carved on the mountain with his name also carved on the memorial stone. It was his dream to be Hokage. It was bittersweet. Nothing was more awe-inspiring that day when his face was adorned with what seemed to be his ever-famous foxy grin, as it was a very lamenting event. Since his death, instead of Konoha losing inspiration and life within the village that Naruto would constantly give, it became livelier, with children often depicting him as the great hero that prevented the oncoming darkness that was about to loom the world. Many civilians were enthralled with his story that they were inspired to enter the Shinobi Academy, increasing the number of soldiers of the Leaf. Life was beginning to prosper. Hinata had looked out her window after the meeting with the elders in the Hyuga clan. She looked at the stone face of the Rokudaime as she held her right hand by the glass window. "Give me strength, Naruto-kun." Her personal bodyguard, Ko, appeared and kneeled down in front of Hinata. "Hinata-sama, the council wishes for you to attend the annual meeting concerning the festivities for October 10th. "Yes, I will be there shortly," said Hinata. With that, Ko nodded and vanished in swirl of leaves. Never did Hinata ever think about being head of the Hyuga household. She even thought it was nigh impossible in the end. Yet, here she was, leading the strongest household in Konoha. During her first year of being the head, she had abolished the idea of inbreeding, as it brought upon countless disease-stricken children. Whether it was anemia, hemophilia or otherwise, it greatly reduced the Hyuga's fighting force. Although many of the elders disagreed, as it was to preserve the bloodline, Hinata reminded them that it was also the reason why so many children from their clan die from genetic diseases. She and her sister were the lucky few along with Neji. Hinata also consulted this to the Hokage. Her being an exceptional medic, asked to help with the genes that the Hyuga had. As Hinata expected of the results, their genes were more dominant rather than recessive, the likelihood of the child obtaining a Byakugan was 50 to 75%, a good amount of odds that swung in her favor. The argument was then closed, with Hinata as the victor, but she didn't stop there. Soon the practice of the caged bird seal was abolished as well, with the earnest protest of the elders. It was a difficult battle to prove her point, and there were occasionally assassination attempts on her during when the law was debated. It was then that the Godem Hokage interfered with the whole matter by banning the use of the caged bird seal and the disbanding of the Hyuga elders. Since then, the Hyuga clan had remained quiet, now that the 5 elemental nations sought a peace treaty with the others. This time, for real, there was no immediate threat anymore. In a sense that in Naruto's death, he had unified the world. It was the biggest gift Naruto could have ever given, his whole life for the sake of the world. Hinata looked up into the sky as gray clouds began to form, dulling the weather in her village. Rain started to fall. This weather is the same weather when you gave yourself up. I can't help but be sad. Hinata watched as the rain poured in, her umbrella shielding her from the downpour as she held out her right hand out, let raindrops fall on the palm of her hand. Hokage Tower. Is this the right way? What if the people inside the clan rebel? The people love her? Asked one of the people inside the council room. This is for the best. Her ideals will be the downfall of this clan. She cannot be allowed to live if she continues with this direction, replied the other. The clan cannot be sustained without the elders there. They're the ones who maintain law and order. If this continues, rampant disobedience to the main house will occur. We cannot allow a war inside the clan. The Godem shall be sure to intervene once again. Once they saw the elegant figure of the Hyuga head, the 3 unnamed men remained silent and continued to watch as the woman walked inside the building. With her back facing against the 3 would-be assailants, they struck. A dagger was thrust inside Hinata's upper back, right where her left lung was positioned. Hinata gasped in pain as she looked around to see her assassin. It was one of the members of the former council in the Hyuga clan. Hyuga, Sakaguchi. W.Y. Hinata could only ask, your senses have been dulled by this piece. Hinata-sama. The man spat at that honorific. Hinata walked slightly as her knees fell, her body soon following afterwards. Your way of leading shall never let the Hyuga prosper. As the strongest in Konoha, we must show that we are the role model that others should follow. The elders of the Hyuga are the prime example of that, he said. Yet because of you, you have caused dissonance within the clan. Many of our people are losing the royal blood of the Hyugas and the subtle show of rebellion from the branch house. Hinata weakly replied, I did it for the children. They are our future. Which is why they should be taught discipline and knowing their place, the man countered. Why you only want power and position, said Hinata. So what if I do? Disgrace of the Hyuga clan. Hiyashi made the wrong choice of making you head, he said as he yanked the dagger out of her back and continued to stab her. Flashback end. Naruto clenched his fists. How could this happen? Afterwards, my death had alarmed Tsunade-sama, and ordered that every member of the clan elders be arrested and die of public execution, said Hinata. Naruto looked at her and then asked. The rage was making his voice shake. What happened to the Hyuga then? Hanabi took my place as head, and vowed on my grave that she would continue the work that I started, therefore I could leave the world, without ever having qualms within myself, said Hinata, holding her chest with her hands as if to signify her inner peace. Naruto just looked down from his position and mumbled about being helpless. All the while, Hinata had asked him. By the way, Naruto-kun, do dead people eat? I seem to be famished all of a sudden. Naruto's attention was caught on and he laughed as Hinata blushed as she said so. Oh, how ironic life could be. First Division Barracks. So you're telling me that this woman here, Jiraiya pointed to Hinata, got into Saratii because you, Jiraiya pointed to Naruto, thought that you could find some food here because only Shinigami have appetites, said Jiraiya, and Naruto nodded. Oh, thank goodness. You bagged yourself a girl, and it happens to be the Hyuga as well. Personally, I prefer her over the pink-haired teammate of yours that has the terrible attitude like that of Tsunade, Jiraiya mentioned, and the Shodem began to wonder further. I've been meaning to ask, how goes my granddaughter? Hinata said that she was doing an excellent job being Hokage and showed a picture of her from Hinata's wallet that apparently went along with her. Once the Shodem saw the photo, however, he felt a rock shattering to dust as his jaw dropped and saw his very own granddaughter. But this is my granddaughter. It's like she became a gravure idol, Senju Hashirama said as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Minato had to shake his head though. A grandfather that had viewed the voluptuous body of his granddaughter made him want to deny it any further. This isn't real, this isn't real, Hashirama told himself as he viewed it again and began crying further. Relax Shodem-sama, believe it or not, Tsunade's single and she's as old as me, said Jiraiya patting the first Hokage on the back to reassure him. Minato then looked at Naruto and to the Hyuga girl that was eating beside him and grinned. You know, if your mother found out about this, and just like in a bad situation, Kushina had shown up, complete with Saya resting on her head and laughing. Find out about what? Asked Kushina and then turned her head around and saw her own son with a girl on his side who was eating a rice ball. Immediately, her reaction was that of awe. Wah, I never expected to see Naru-chan's girlfriend to be so cute, Kushina said as she grabbed Hinata and hugged her and rubbed her cheeks against hers. Hinata, however, was turning scarlet by the second when she heard that she was Naruto's girlfriend. Mom. And all was right in the world. Time skip again. Naruto was assigned on patrol along with the captain of the 10th Division. They were at the mountains in Hokkaido to investigate the numerous disappearances of the living around the area. As Naruto reached for the highest peak, he could feel the Ryotsu starting to get denser and denser. Damn it, what the hell, Naruto muttered, completely shocked as the snow under him began shifting. The earth made a rumbling noise as it shook. Hitsugaya and his subordinates were startled and saw that the snow beneath them began to rise. Immediately, the Shinigami moved away and a long white tentacle-like object rose from the ground. It had a strange red lining extending from its tip to God knows where. Naruto, meanwhile, had heard a familiar howl escaping from the mountains. This wasn't good. Immediately, out of the peak of the mountain, emerged the head of gigantic hollow, in the form of a white fox. Its fur being that inside its calcified like armor with multiple red linings painted on its body and 9 very long tails. Naruto could merely utter it, Kyuubi no, Kitsune. Hitsugaya, however, screamed from the other side, Ejuka's class Manos. Call for captain level back up now, said Tushiru as he went in and dived against the said fox. Hello Gaki, fancy meeting you here, Naruto only nodded, with the child captain stopping in his tracks as the gigantic hollow started the conversation with the blonde. What are the chances of you turning into a hollow? I never thought I'd see your ugly smile again, Kyuubi, Naruto remarked. Still as obnoxious as ever, though I'd expect you turn to be a Shinigami sooner or later, replied the Kyuubi. To this, Naruto's frown grew even deeper. You knew? He asked. Of course I did. I've died and been reborn 1,000 times. It's no surprise that you became a Shinigami because of what you did. Why are you here, anyway? Asked the blonde. To forge another legend. For I, the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, is the stuff of myths. I alone am the epitome of power. To this, Hitsugaya replied, if you are the epitome of power, then why are you a mere Ejukas? The greatest hollows are the Vasto Lords. Shut up, mere insect. Even as an Ejukas, even Vasto Lord fear me, the Kyuubi gloated, swatting Tushiru away with a mere wisp of its tail. Let's settle this Gaki, 21 years of conflict between us. It ends to who shall be the one to perish. Naruto solemnly nodded and said, bring it on, furball. Naruto unsheathed his Zanpakuto from his scabbard and held it with both hands and said, Teki wo Kiritatero. Fusion. The force of the wind grew strong around Naruto, as the blade started to lengthen, the hand guard extending down to cover the hands and 4 long white clothes brandished out of the guard with the kanji of the 1 cardinal direction each. So this is your Shikai. I expected as much. Power such as yours are hard to come by even if you are a human. Shouted the Kyuubi as it raised its gargantuan paw and slammed it down on the ground. Naruto quickly evaded to the side and let the kanji of the north glow. Tatsumaki. Tornado, said Naruto, and a vortex of wind had burst from the sword, slamming itself on the Kyuubi that merely flinched from the powerful stream of a whirlwind. Is this your capacity? Show me more of your power, the Kyuubi demanded, as it swooped its upper body down about to bite Naruto, who merely used Shunpo, flash step, to get above the 9-tailed fox. The kanji of south glowed, and this time, Naruto shouted. Fuajinga. Wind god Fang. Wind began to collect around Naruto as he descended on the Kyuubi. The overhead slash penetrated the thick calcified armor of the 9-tailed fox as it tore through flesh. That's it. Show me your worth. Show me the extent of your strength. Kyuubi then used its tails as it began to collect Ryotsu at every tips. Bala. Spanish word, means bullet, said the Kyuubi as it fired red blasts of orbs everywhere as if it rained mortar shells, creating explosions around the Kyuubi as it then began to move and make its descent from the mountain. You're not getting away. Bakudo no Rokujyuichi, Rikujokoro. Naruto yelled. As 6 rods of light pierced the Kyuubi in midsection, the Kyuubi turned its head around, its red lines from its white armor glowing as reishi began collecting at the mouth of the 9-tailed fox. It's a Sero. Hitsugaya yelled, immediately getting up and letting his Ryotsu fluctuate. Forget the limitation, he was taking this beast down. Bankai. An explosion of multiple energies occurred, sending Hitsugaya flying back. It was already too late as the Sero was fired. Naruto had seen the oncoming Sero straight at him with only a few seconds to spare. He had immediately ordered the rest to move away and he himself jumped, aiming for the fox with the strongest Kido he has ever known. Hado no Hachijuahachi, Hiryu Gekizoku Shintenraiho. Destructive Art Number 88. Soaring Dragon Striking Heaven Shaking Thunder Cannon. A massive blast escaped Naruto's hands as it struck one of the Kyuubi's ears, tearing through everything and dissolving in an instant. The kitsune growled in pain and swished one of its tails of the blonde, sending him crashing to the nearby trees, making it fall down. The blonde cursed, as he felt that it was difficult to move his body. Kyuubi was right in front of him, its Sero aimed at him at point-blank range. Too bad, Gaki, looks like I win, Kyuubi mentioned as it edged its head back, and aiming the Sero straight to Naruto. One of the strip of clothes of Naruto's sword began to glow. The cloth with the Eastern kanji glowed as the Sero was fired. Naruto focused all of his reishi into the blade, glowing in blue light as gusts of wind began to pick up its pace around the blonde Shinigami. The blonde then aimed the tip of his sword directly towards the oncoming energy blast. His forehead was bleeding, but he didn't care. His body was aching all over, but he ignored the pain. All he wanted to do now was to finish a lifelong conflict between him and his former prisoner. I will not go down. Kamikaze. Divine Wind. Naruto had thrust straight into the Sero, managing to cut through the red energy beam. The Kyuubi was stunned, as Naruto finally broke through the Sero and stabbed him on the forehead. The 9-tailed fox howled inane as Naruto pierced its forehead, cracking the mask that hid its face. Naruto, on the other hand, did not stop there as he dragged fusion from the forehead of the Kyuubi down to the very end of its 5th tail. RRRRAHHHHHH. The sword tore through everything in its blade. Kyuubi screamed in pain as it fell down on the snowy-covered ground with Naruto appearing in front of it. A human? I have never fought like this against a human. Even you were more of a challenge than the Yondaime. I can consider myself proud that you were my host until the very end. Now receive my gift. This sword that will make you superior in heaven and earth. Naruto held out his right hand. Fusion was with his left, as the Kyuubi began to dematerialize and turn to tendrils of energy going towards Naruto's right hand. A sword began to take form, the length and shape of a normal katana, but instead of a normal hilt. It was pitch black with a small chain and the symbol of demon hanging. Naruto then unsheathed the sword and viewed its scarlet blade. It seemed like it was forever doused with blood. Naruto then heard the whisperings of the 9-tails voice. The final piece of the puzzle has been placed. We are now complete, as one again, and this shall be the symbol of our pact. It was then that the thundering snowstorm of the mountains had immediately stopped. Naruto looked at the clear blue sky on top of the snowy peak, and viewed the small town below. Today would be a good day. 20 years later. Confusion, complete and utter confusion, escaped Tsunade's features as she looked at the 3 people that were there to greet her in the afterlife. One was her grandfather, Senju Hashirama, who was looking quite shocked and was in denial, often muttering, "Su-chan is a big girl, a big girl, a big girl." All the while, the first Hokage was weeping as if someone had trampled on his beliefs. Second, was her perverted teammate, Jiraiya, who was giving off a simple, "Yo" look, as was the third, Uzumaki Naruto, arms at the back of the blonde-haired boy's head. By the looks of things, I bet you 3 would be the ones to take me to heaven or whatever there is, right? Jiraiya and Naruto said at the same time, pretty much more or less. Tsunade just sighed, and then Naruto asked him, What done you in Ba-chan? Old age, that and the results of using Suzo Saisei, Genesis Rebirth, in my lifetime. Jiraiya simply nodded and said, finally got it to you, huh? Well, I suppose your vanity is still intact, after all your face is still wrinkle-free here and you aren't all saggy. This earned a powerful punch in the face that forced Jiraiya through a rock. In the realm of the living though, everyone panicked thinking of a terrorist attack. Naruto just laughed hysterically pointing to the bloody heap that was Jiraiya. Hashirama just remained unresponsive to the conversation. Could somebody please get this over with? My million cups of sake and uncontrollable streak of luck awaits. Naruto then said to her, look Ba-chan, you got a pretty screwed up idea of what the afterlife is like. Want me to do what I did to Jiraiya back then? Naruto hurriedly shook his head with a wordless no and prepared the sword on his right, Fujin. Kansu, soul burial, he said and tapped Tsunade's forehead with the hilt of his sword. Why were we here again? Jiraiya asked getting up. Untapped high Ryatsu potential and that crap, found out it was your old teammate. Said Naruto and Jiraiya said, oh, I thought it was Yamamoto feeding me to the wolves. Not in the slightest, was Naruto's reply, and Jiraiya shrugged, he might as well. The pair looked at the gawking grandfather. Still to shell shocked about his granddaughter, Jiraiya sighed and pulled Hashirama by the collar. Come here, Grandpa, we can talk you to this once we get home and have a nice cup of sake with your brother and the rest. Oi, you better not drag me into one of those again. Remember last time? Asked the blonde. How could Jiraiya forget? Flashback. Hey, Sensei, you think that you could help Mesh. I don't want to be a virgin for the rest of my life. Naruto slurred his speech. Jiraiya put an arm around the shoulder on the boy and said, don't worry about it, Naruto, it's just Komesh with time. I remember. Remember, what wash I talking about? Jiraiya Shenzai, Yush were talking about, helping Naruto with his girl, problems, Minato said. They were having their merry-making inside the first division compound. Hashirama and Tobirama were down on the ground sleeping coupled with loud snores that made the remaining drinkers laugh. Naruto, Minato and Jiraiya, the Sandaime was nowhere to be found saying that he'd rather face Kenpachi than explain it to a firebrand like Kushina. And as on cue, Kushina had smashed through a window shattering the glass with a flying kick and an angry look on her face. Her eyes were red in anger as she looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya started to get sober and then fumble at his words. Minato had already bolt leaving Jiraiya with Naruto. Jiraiya cursed Minato's sixth sense when it came to his wife. You dare, to show Naruto about the evils of drinking, Kushina muttered shaking and then Naruto drunkenly waved his arms at his mother. Hey Mom. Shenzai just brought me out for a good time. Mom, did you know that Shenzai just offered me to help with my girl problems? Kushina's anger was rising. Jiraiya could have sworn smoke was going out of Kushina's mouth as she looked menacing enough preparing to go to a rampage. Jiraiya was now sweating bullets and wanted to hide out under the blanket, preferably forever. Naruto then added with a smile on his face. Hey Mom, he said, and Kushina looked at his flushing son that hung loosely on Jiraiya's shoulders. I love you. And then gave a drunken smile. Nice save, Naruto. Jiraiya mentally grinned. Kushina was stunned for a moment and smiled a little. Jiraiya quickly noticed Kushina's defenses were down and placed the blonde on the chair as he hightailed it out of the vicinity. Naruto slurred and his head was spinning and Kushina ran to his son's side and supported it, the stench of alcohol littering in her nose. Oh, my baby, I love you too, said Kushina hugging Naruto and the blonde just slumped. Ooh, was Naruto's only reply and Kushina shed a few tears of happiness. Well, it was the first time his son said it to him, and no matter how old his son was, part of Kushina wanted to have Naruto's childhood within her. Being that she died when Naruto was a baby boy, it brought back a lot of emotions that Kushina felt when she left Naruto. Which was why she did everything she could just for his son when he arrived in Soul Society, to make up for the loss of motherhood in Naruto's childhood. It was what she felt that made her this overprotective of her son. Hey Mom, his son started again. Kushina looked at her drunken son with curiosity and then Naruto continued. Jiraiya Shenzai said that he would help me with finding a girl. I don't understand Mom. Why don't girls see me as a perfectly okay guy? I mean, when I was 12, I wash never like my teammate, Uchiha. I always treated girls kindly that my teammate would often scoff at. Kushina wondered too. Naruto was a perfectly fine young boy. At least that's what her motherly instincts told her, and she told her son, Naruto, you are a fine young man and you deserve no less, come on, let's get you home. Kushina stood up and Naruto added more, Mom, want to hear what Jiraiya Sensei taught me when I wash alive? By the course of the next few minutes, Kushina yelled at the top of her lungs with the statement, what, Jiraiya, you're dead. Flashback and Jiraiya shuddered at the thought. The next day after that, he was nailed to one of the walls upside down with a hangover and Minato was on house arrest courtesy of Kushina who was guarding the man with a ladle. Naruto on the other hand, was at bed a hangover and a terrible nausea that continued on for several days. Naruto knew Kushina's tender spots and then exploited them so well that even his father was scared enough to upset the blonde back then. You had a mouth of a parrot when you're drunk. I'm not going to be inviting you there anytime soon unless your mother is over that phase. The least you could do is go with Kira and Renji and you free get drunk. Nausea my ass. Naruto laughed at that and made their way to Saradie. 5 days later, he went over to the academy to check out the newest recruits since he had to take a tally and submit the forms at the statistics office. How he hated it. The people at the logistics department that Shinigami had to do it at least once. Naruto thought they were just lazy beyond help. As he turned around to a corner, he was met with a familiar face back to his own world. Shikamaru, said Naruto and the pineapple head looked at him with a half-opened eye. As expected, Shikamaru was skipping class again. What the hell, lazy ass? You should be over at your class right now, Naruto said. Shikamaru just scoffed. Yeah, Zanjutsu and all that. I can't even swing a damn sword properly. What are you doing here anyway? Logistics, was Naruto's simple reply. Shikamaru snorted a laugh. So the great Uzumaki Naruto fell to the great paperwork. I never knew you'd be the type. Naruto simply gave him the middle finger salute. At least I wasn't done in by a half-baked attempt of a crazy lady cooking in the middle of a gas leak. Shikamaru then complained. Geez, keep rubbing it in, why don't ya? I can't believe she was ballsy enough to do it. Naruto shrugged, and immediately the attention of the two was turned to a woman who was running down the hallways. Nyahaha. I got my Shikai already. Barabura Tarabi. Swing, Tiger Tail. Anko said, swiping the long whip around her, almost managing to hit Naruto and Shikamaru. Anko. Put down the dangerous released Zanpakuto. You could poke an eye out, Naruto said. Anko dropped her initial release, crossed her arms and pouted. Damn it. How come someone has to ruin my fun whenever it was getting so good? She sealed her Zanpakuto form and sheathed it, all the while stomping back into the hallway. I see she got her Shikai down already, and it's only been what? Her 3rd year, was Shikamaru's reply. Speaking of Gaara, where is the guy? Asked the blonde. Shikamaru pointed to the Kido class on his right. Diligently learning new spells to compensate for his auto-sand defense loss. Naruto had nodded. He had learned of Gaara's death. Since his body wasn't being healed by his Biju since its extraction, Gaara's body started to deteriorate. Someone who had not that much sleep their whole life and their Biju extracted was bound to get a serious case of organ shutdown. It was a miracle to say the least that Gaara had managed to survive for almost 30 years. And Rock Lee. PSSH, that guy's been acing Hakuda, Ho-Ho and Kido well. It seems what he lacked in the realm of the living, he made it up here, said Shikamaru. What about you? Naruto asked. Shikamaru shrugged. What happened in my time back then, I'm still doing now. Never thought being dead was such hard work. Shikamaru said. Naruto laughed at that. A few minutes later, an explosion was heard from the other side of the academy. The whole wall from the 3rd floor into the 5th exploded in a fiery torrent that some of the students began panicking. You don't think, Naruto said, and Shikamaru stood up and walked away. If they say that I'm with Anko, it'd be troublesome. Now I got to hide before that woman finds me and force me to make up another alibi. With that, Shikamaru was gone with a simple shunpo. Speak for yourself, you lazy ass, you're still quite the genius, uttered Naruto as he got up and did his routine, although begrudgingly. Help. That crazy just aimed a Raikuho on one of the supporting beams. Get the hammer and wood quick. Well, at least there was something interesting going on. Namikaze residence. Naruto got home, completely disgruntled. As he went to his bed, his face fell flat on the soft cushion and didn't even bother to move. Naruto Nichan. Kushina Okazen said that it's dinner time. Saya crawled in. Naruto was sprawled on his bead, unmoving. Saya quickly tried to pull Naruto by the hem of his hakama. Ni-chan. Come on, she said, trying her hardest. Naruto just grunted. Don't worry about me, Saya-chan. I'll be right over in a few minutes. Logistics has been pretty damn unforgiving as of late, said the blonde as he slowly got up and Saya cheered. Why? Saya said as she jumped on Naruto's shoulders and the blonde almost fell. He looked at his adopted sister and smiled. Yosh. Let's go have some dinner, said the blonde, raising his fists and Saya mimicking her big brother. Once they got on the dinner table, Saya sat in a row with Naruto and Hinata. Saya in the middle. When they ate their dinner, Kushina and Minato were in the opposite side of the table. Once they started eating, Naruto was telling what had happened later that day as he gave a deep sigh, stating his hatred for the logistics department, and Hinata stating that her current assignment in the 10th Division was well. Toshiro was polite and Matsumoto, the vice captain, was friendly, albeit she slacks off from work by drinking and then dozing off in the barracks lounge area. Minato's face was then replaced to complacent, then to melancholic. Have you heard the news, Naruto? Naruto looked at his father with questions and Naruto shook his head. Minato had to break it to the boy. Shiba Kaian. A few years ago, so that was why we couldn't see him for some time. It came as a shock to me when Sarutobi-sama found out about it. He didn't expect it for it to happen. He asked Yamamoto Taiko if he knew the incident, but the Sutaichu didn't know anything. He only found out now as well. Naruto froze for a moment. Someone like Kaian died? Naruto immediately stood up. What? It seemed a hollow parasite had infected Kaian, controlling him, killing his wife and almost killing Kichiki Rukia. The incident was a hush-hush since they thought there was a flawed system in detecting hollow Ryotsu in the area. At least that's what the report said. Minato answered. Naruto frowned. Even if there was a chance that a minute hollow invading Saradie, but the radar should have detected it, even if it was minute. Naruto had only one thing in mind. So you think so too, huh? Minato questioned. Naruto nodded. The rest on the table were silent. Their instincts at being ninja never failed them once before. Someone in Saradie willingly put down the alarm system. If by chance, the traitor is in either Central 46 or worse, the Gote 13, said Naruto. Kushina looked concerned for a moment. Have you informed Yamamoto Sutaicho? No. Hashirama-sama and the rest of us in the 1st Division didn't want to divulge this info on Yamamoto Taicho. If we did, we'd lose tracks of our suspects, said Minato. Naruto then said, Ichimaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke, right? According to the details 50 years prior to my death, those two were involved in encountering a group of hollows that had invaded the city and bound themselves to captains and vice-captains of the Gote 13. Most prominent was Hirako Shinji, former captain of the 5th Division, which Sosuke leads now. Minato nodded. Suffice to say that Hashirama-sama and Tobirama-sama already had their suspicions. When I came here, I had as well. If only Jiraiya-sensei had a powerful spy network here like he had when he was alive. Minato then said to his son, come early tomorrow morning, Naruto. The 1st Division would have its own meeting at the barracks. We have a mission. Naruto nodded. The next morning, all of the members of the 1st Division had met in the barracks, all of them looking serious. There wasn't any hint of joy in any of them. I take it we're about to have a mission of utmost secrecy, Tobirama mentioned. Minato and the others nodded. Naruto was leaning on the wall. The traitor has decided to move inside Saradie. I don't know how deep his connections are and to what extent. Rest assured that all of the people here and any newcomers that we might receive are going to be debriefed upon the current situation. However, we must remember to keep this a secret even from Yamamoto Sutaichu, Sarutobi said. Naruto nodding. The 6 of us here have had our own suspicions and most of them pertain to one man. After all, when did our sense of danger lie to us before? Hashirama said. Jiraiya then mentioned, as of now, I'm going to re-establish my reputation in the espionage network. I need to do this without the help of the current Nibontai Taiko, 2nd Division Captain, Soifun. Her involvement would surely be monitored by Central 46. We need to place someone there that we know of and trust and place them in a high-ranking position that isn't significant enough. but allows them to command a sizable amount of people inside. Naruto raised his hand. I already know someone who can command a spy network in the academy. Once he graduates, Sarutobi Gigi should be able to sway Yamamoto Sutecho's decision in placing him in the second division. He has a pretty good track record when he was alive. Became Tsunade's tactical advisor and loyal to the village. Ero Sennin, I know it's a bit sudden, but you need to show Nara Shikamaru the ropes in leading and managing an intelligence network. Jiraiya nodded and said, leave it to me, I'll be taking him as an apprentice soon enough. Minato then said, there's another problem we need to talk about. Everyone inside the barracks looked at him. I know that we may soon face 1 or 2 captain-level Shinigami. But we need intel on their abilities and the high possibility of facing them with Bankai. Right now, most of us here have either reached materialization or is close to achieving and mastering Bankai. It is imperative that we reach Bankai and master it before Aizen makes a move. I think we can have contact with someone in the realm of the living who could tell us more about Aizen's abilities to an extent. All of them nodded, and Minato looked at his son, Naruto. Aizen is a pretty cunning man. Under that Buddha-like exterior is a cold and calculating person who has a grandiose set of plans. Aizen placed you as one of the priority Shinigami he could use, being that you were good enough, but there was something that made him stop to consider you in placing in his division. Sarutobi continued from there. It was you, questioning orders, your former background as a shinobi from Konoha. As a shinobi you have no doubt learned to sense deception when there is one. Do you know why Aizen transferred Renji to the 11th division? Naruto said. Renji said that Aizen mentioned to him that he was too rowdy for the 5th division, that's why he was in the 11th, but that's a crock-load of bull. Said Naruto, and then he continued. Renji may not question orders, but he was too flashy for Sosuke. Any small mistakes and accidental discoveries would have blown Aizen's spider web of plans to dust. Said Naruto. Did you tell Renji that? Asked Minato. Naruto shook his head. No, I told him that he was proper to be in the 11th division for a moment until he could control his temper and master his abilities to reach Fuku Taicho skills. Tobirama nodded. Hashirama then said, Naruto, we have a mission for you. Naruto looked at the men questioningly and then asked, I thought it was all of us, why just me? Jiraiya answered, because Aizen can't assume that you'll get in his way. After all, you have neither delved into his schemes nor made a move until now, and this is the perfect opportunity to gather intel and if possible, get a chance for some allies to help us. Naruto simply nodded and Minato briefed him, you'll be going out of Siraiti in secret this midnight. It is possible that some Shinigami would come soon after. If you get in contact with them, tell them that you have a solo mission to gather info on the strange increase of hollow activity there. You mean Karakura town? Yeah, that place seems to be a hotspot for hollows as of late. Said Naruto to no one in particular. Tobirama said to the youngest Hokage. Since someone would be guarding Karakura town, she would not disrupt you gathering info on it. It would also give you the chance to reach our contact there. Naruto looked at the man and asked, who is it? Urahara Kazuki, mentioned Jiraiya. Naruto nodded. So it was the former 12th division captain. If he had heard correctly, the former captain of the said division was exiled from Soul Society. With that, the meeting ended and the members of the 1st division went away from the barracks to have some time to rest before commencing the mission. As soon as the secret meeting was over, Naruto headed out to the farthest training field he could find and unsheathed his new Zanpakuto. Once he did, he could feel the power coming off from the blade as it gave a red ethereal glow. It seemed to pulse lightly and Naruto began to close his eyes, envisioning the flow of the sword's Reiatsu straight to him. He didn't know how to explain why his new sword had its own Reiatsu as it didn't even begin a conversation with him. Right now, he was still attempting to have a conversation with the said sword but failed and failed time and time again. But Naruto, being the stubborn bull-headed person that he is, chose to persevere in his path to fully have a conversation. Every time he tried, he discovered his mistakes in trying to converse with the sword, so he kept all of his mistakes in the past in mind, and let the sword guide him. Mindscape. Where his other sword Fujin had a very majestic view of his world, this new Zanpakuto was different. The world pertained here as dark, gloomy and damp. Everywhere Naruto went, the floor on his feet had water everywhere. It reminded him of his former mind when he was alive. Back then, it was a hallway of interconnecting canals and sewers. Now, just one big area where there is water below. Just then, he looked onto his back and saw a trickle of sunshine. It was yellow, and the sky that was around it was colored in red, as scarlet as blood. As he watched the sun ascend upon the dark starless sky, a woman, about as tall as he was, wearing a ceremonial kimono, approached him. Naruto was awed with the woman's radiant beauty and deep green eyes, her long flowing black hair that reached the floor. Sakura petals fell from above. As she gracefully covered herself with her paper umbrella, she gave an elegant smile at the Shinigami before her and said, "Welcome, young Shinigami, your persistence has finally borne fruit." Naruto was confused. This didn't feel like the Kyuubi. There was no malevolent taint coming from the woman. The woman covered her small mouth and laughed gracefully. Naruto was startled. "You are probably wondering, this is your Zanpakuto, do you wish for my name?" The graceful woman lent Naruto her hand and said, "I am asterisk 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 asterisk." Naruto looked at her for a moment and squinted his eyes. "What?" The woman simply shook her head and said, "Oh pooh, it seems you still cannot hear my name, Naruto-chan, maybe someday." With that, the graceful woman leaned her body forward, raising her feet with her toes and gently planted a kiss on Naruto's forehead. "All things come in due time. Patience is but a virtue, Naruto-chan," she said as she smiled and playfully trickled Naruto's cheek with her index finger. With that, she turned her back and went away, the glow of the yellow sun fading back. With a sudden jolt, Naruto opened his eyes and stood up. He looked at his crimson katana and sighed, "Better keep the persona of my Zanpakuto hidden from Jiraiya or worse, Mom, no telling what they will do." Midnight. The glow of the white full moon had shone brilliantly that night, as Naruto was met with the rest of the First Division in Rukongai, the outside town of Siraiti. There, the gates of the Senkaimon had opened. The blonde looked at the members of the First Division. A large square ivory gate had appeared in the small alley, as it opened the path to the realm of the living. Jiraiya said to his pupil, "Be careful, we'll do our part here. Once you get there, it's all up to you. This is important. If you could obtain info on Aizen's abilities, the sooner the better, so as we can prepare ourselves for battle. We'll give you a heads up on the situation here. One of us will be informing you on Siraiti's status on different occasions. We'll do this by giving you letters by relaying it to Urahara-san. Once there, I hope you would do your part." Naruto nodded. Looking to the Senkaimon gate, he gestured a goodbye and ran towards the entrance of the gate. In the background, an angry Kushina was struggling under Minato's shoulder lock. "Let me go. That's my child you're sending. He needs to be here. I don't want him in this long-term mission." Minato was chastising his wife and was forced to swallow the pain of being elbowed in the gut. Hiruzen chose to shake his head and sighed in exasperation. He looked at his student and asked, "And this maternal tantrum is number?" Jiraiya answered in a calm manner, 428. "Minato, if you don't release me right now, I swear to Kami, you won't get any tonight." "And that's threat number 751. Jiraiya answered. "You're all dead if my Naruto-chan doesn't come back to me this instant." Tobirama's spine quickly began to shake as he said, "Make that 52 and a bonus for threatening all of us." Hashirama then said, "I think it's time to counsel Kushina-san about letting all chicks fly from the nest at some point." Hiruzen then whispered to his white-haired student, "You better not use Tsunade as an example though. The clear-headed Hashirama-sama still has depression written all over him about his precious granddaughter." Jiraiya snapped his fingers for letting that example fly. This was going to be a long explanation. Karakura Town, midnight. A portal had appeared at the top of Karakura Bridge. Naruto stepped outside, his feet focusing Reiatsu in it, his limiter taking effect. He met a resistance in air and stepped outside. The glow of the full moon had met his gaze. The silver light of the object gave a gentle caress upon the town, its light dancing in the flow of the river of Karakura Town, rippling as it continued to pass. Naruto looked around. Small buildings had littered everywhere, as its lights shone into the dark night. Naruto was in awe just how beautiful the city lights were at night. The blonde stepped down and landed on the ground, all the while admiring the glow of the full moon upon the small town that was Karakura. Naruto thought it would be prudent to at least discover the town for the layout. It was only midnight and he doubted that Urahara would be awake at this hour. As he made his trek around Karakura, Naruto noted the different landmarks around it. The school by the north, a tailor shop near west and a clinic by the south ran by a doctor named Kurosaki Ishin. Before he knew it, the sun was already up. Naruto squinted and covered his brow with his palm and viewed the majestic sunrise. Quickly, he set up his Gigai and began implanting memories around town and in school. Quickly settling down his work, he grinned and let his work manifest itself. Meanwhile, Kurosaki Ichigo was not a morning person. He looked at his human alarm clock that was his father sprawled on the floor of his room twitching and another bruise on the cheek. It was always like this. The orange-haired boy looked around and grabbed the older man by the back of his head and tossed him outside. Quickly, he got into the shower and got dressed with his new school uniform. It was the start of the semester and he was trying to lower his reputation as a street punk. Well, he just hoped that it wouldn't happen with this new one. As he got out of his room, he cursed his luck of having orange hair as it stood out too much. He sat at the table as his sister Yuzu served him his breakfast. Ichigo grabbed the bowl and effortlessly gave his fast-approaching father an elbow to the gut followed by a kick to the chest that sent the father flying to the opposite wall. Again, he wasn't a morning person. Once Ichigo finished his meal, he grabbed his handbag and went out. Another bash with a backhand strike at his father and he was off. Ishin could only mutter in between bouts of pain, "He's certainly growing up." Ichigo decided to take the walk to school. Since it was merely the start of high school, he noted that introductions would be useless since he'll forget the names of the people he normally doesn't interact with. So once he approached the school, he could see the students crowding near the billboard that told them which class they were. Apparently, he heard his name being shouted by one of the people in the crowd being roomed with them, so he looked at the board and looked at the board. He saw his name being listed in class 2. The same class that his friend, Arisawa was in along with that red-headed girl, Orihime, and his big imposing friend, Chad. What got him though, was the name Namikaze Naruto. Ichigo didn't know what to think of that situation for a moment. That person with that name, it made Ichigo wary of him. Something was definitely wrong. Damn punk, you cramp our style in this school by dyeing your hair blonde like that damned Kurosaki. What, you think it looks good? Said the voice behind Ichigo. The orange-haired boy looked behind and saw a blonde-haired boy, as tall as he was being held by the collar as he was raised and with his feet dangled. Naruto merely gave a smile and replied, "It isn't bleached, my hair is natural." The hot-headed delinquent's anger doubled and the fact that the boy was smiling was pissing him off to no end. "You're the same as that Kurosaki. You and your excuses, you're not Japanese if you have hair like that. You stand out more than me." With that, the punk aimed a punch straight to Naruto's face. Naruto quickly countered by twisting the arm of the punk that held him up. The punk writhed in agony as Naruto cracked his knuckles and approached the group of thugs with a smile. "It's not nice to punch people in the face for such a childish reason," said the blonde, all with a smile sewn across his face. What could be followed by the next few minutes were screams of agony and the sounds flesh hitting flesh with some sounds of other solid objects hitting flesh. Ow! The agony! Help! My spine! Mommy! Ichigo was giving a smile all the while as he watched the blonde tore through the punks like tissue paper with some of them were already a crying heap on the floor. Naruto held up a man by his collar and hoisted him up, a fist back with the man shaking his head shouting, "No more. I give, uncle, uncle." Ichigo approached the blonde and said, "That's some handiwork you did there, could you let them go now?" Although it was funny, I think they learned their lesson now. To this, Naruto looked at the 5 men prone to the ground with them sobbing and then running off. He supposed he was sorry for this miscreant bunch, sort of. Maybe. Nah. Name's Kurosaki Ichigo, nice to meet you. The blonde dusted himself off and replied, "Namikaze Naruto." Ichigo seemed wary at first, that name made him stand on edge, but as a gesture, he extended his hand and shook Naruto's. Little did Ichigo know, that this would be the start of his new life, a life of adventure, a life that stood between life and death, and travels of epic proportions. As Ichigo shook Naruto's hand, he could remember what his father had said during one of his rare moments of wisdom. Fear is something irremovable, but friendship is something irreplaceable. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.